She wants her real dad to walk her down the aisle. That sentence didn't come with any dramatic music, no shaky hands, no teary eyes across the dinner table. Just a plain, half-casual statement from the woman I married 26 years ago, delivered like she was reading off a shopping list. I didn't throw my fork. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even blink. Instead, I stared at the little chip in my plate, the one Lily made when she was 12, and tried to microwave leftover spaghetti with the fork still in it. I remember her crying over it, apologizing like she'd broken the whole damn house. I told her, "It's just a plate. You're more important." I'd meant it. Donna kept talking like I hadn't just been shot in the gut. She thought, well, it might mean a lot to him. He's never had that kind of moment with her. And I stood up, pushed in my chair with both hands, slowly, like it was made of glass. Walked upstairs. My joints ached, but I didn't let them show. I didn't say a word, because if I opened my mouth, I wouldn't be able to stop. In the bedroom, I opened the closet and pulled out the duffel bag I hadn't used since the last time I went fishing with my old buddy Grant in Estes Park. That was 5 years ago. Grant's gone now. Cancer. I remember the way he used to say, "Better a quiet trip than a loud funeral." I laid out a few flannels, packed socks, thermal underwear, jeans, fishing gear, wallet, keys, phone charger. No shaving kit. I didn't feel like pretending I gave a damn how I looked anymore. On the dresser, next to the jewelry box I bought Donna on our 15th anniversary, I placed the tuxedo receipt. Custom tailored. Paid in full. Black with navy trim. Just like Lily said she'd always dreamed of. "You'll look like James Bond, Papa," she'd said during the fitting. Papa. Not stepdad. Not Roger. Just Papa. I guess that title expires when biology walks back into the room. I heard Donna downstairs, opening the fridge. She didn't come up. Of course she didn't. She knew. She knew. When I stepped outside, the air was sharp. Evening cicadas humming in the hedges. The lawn still had the faint tracks from where I'd mowed it that morning. One last chore before disappearing. I got into the truck. Old F-150. Runs rough on cold mornings, but still purrs like a dog when warmed up. I drove. Didn't know exactly where yet. Just west. Didn't call anyone. Not even my brother. Not even my sponsor from the Navy vet group. Just silence. The good kind. Not the kind that follows betrayal. Not the kind that wraps around you like a noose. No, this one was different. Like I'd finally remembered how to breathe without asking for permission. 4 hours in, I stopped at a roadside diner off I-70. Ordered black coffee and eggs, even though it was after midnight. The waitress, bless her, didn't ask questions. She just refilled my cup when it got low and left the check face down. I slept in the truck that night, curled up under a spare blanket. Woke up stiff, but clear. I wasn't angry. That's the part people won't understand. This wasn't rage. This wasn't a tantrum or punishment. It was something colder, heavier, like a final verdict delivered by someone who's seen too much to cry anymore. I raised that girl since she was 3. I cleaned vomit from her bedsheets, built her treehouse, held her through every scraped knee and broken heart. I sold my '68 Barracuda, the last car I'd restored with my own hands, to pay for her master's degree. I gave her everything I had, down to the hours I didn't know I was losing. And now? Now a man who vanished for 2 decades gets the aisle. He didn't rock her through night terrors. He didn't explain periods or heartbreak or algebra. He didn't stand in the rain at her soccer games or pick her up from that party where some boy crossed the line. I did. Me. But biology's sexy, right? It sells better in Instagram captions. Lily will never know it. But that tuxedo receipt on the dresser? That was my goodbye. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just paper proof of a man who was willing to stand beside her on the biggest day of her life. Until he wasn't wanted anymore. And that's when I left. Not for drama. Not for pity. I left because silence says more than begging ever could. The hotel room near the venue was supposed to be a surprise. Corner suite, lake view. Same place Donna and I stayed on our 10th anniversary, back when Lily was still writing me crayon love notes and Donna didn't flinch every time the word loyalty came up in a conversation. I'd booked it 6 months in advance, told the staff I wanted champagne in the room, lilies in a vase, and a damn cheese board because Donna always rolled her eyes at cake. I canceled it from a gas station off Route 36. Name on the reservation? Roger Paxton. Friday the 11th. A pause. Would you like to reschedule, sir? No, I said. Just burn it. The girl on the line hesitated. Maybe she heard something in my voice. Maybe she didn't. But she confirmed the cancellation and didn't ask why. Good. I stood by the payphone a moment longer than I needed to. There was a vending machine humming next to it. Snickers, water, some local energy drink called Bison Fuel. I didn't want any of it. My stomach felt like it had been removed, replaced by wet concrete. Back in the truck, I checked the GPS. I had about 6 hours left to reach the cabin, Grant's place. After he died, his son offered it to me for long weekends. Said it was what Dad would have wanted. I hadn't taken him up on it. Not until now. Before hitting the road again, I pulled out a plain white envelope from the glove box. Inside, the final payment to Bloom and Vine Floral Studio. Lily had picked them herself, tiny place, overpriced, but she fell in love with the arrangements. Peonies, eucalyptus, pale blush roses. A few months ago, I went with her to one of the fittings. She came out in the dress and did a little twirl in front of the mirror. Do I look like someone worth crying over? She asked me. I smiled. More than that. You look like someone worth everything. I mailed the check without a note. No congratulations, no best wishes. Just money. Clean and cold. Let someone else cry over the flowers. The road west was empty and wide. Big sky. No soundtrack but the wind howling through a cracked window and the occasional semi-barreling past. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't want songs reminding me of dances in the living room or car rides to her first piano recitals. I wanted quiet. The kind that wraps around your bones and makes you feel like a ghost before you're actually dead. I passed a billboard that said, "Life's short, call your dad." And I laughed. Hard. The kind of laugh that starts in the throat and dies before it reaches the lungs. I didn't call anyone. Not Donna. Not Lily. Not even Pete, my old neighbor, who probably noticed I hadn't picked up the paper from the porch. No one deserved a warning. Not when they'd made their choice so casually, so collectively. There's something devastating about knowing you weren't even considered. Donna didn't argue with Lily. Didn't say, "Roger's raised you since you were in pull-ups." Didn't remind her who funded the damn wedding, who signed every tuition check, who sold his one indulgence, the car, the only thing that made him feel young again, just to pay for her dress fittings and venue deposit. She didn't fight for me. She sat me down like a manager preparing for a transition. HR smile. Empty eyes. She just thought it might mean a lot to him. You know what would have meant a lot to me, Donna? Being asked. Being told with respect. Instead, I got informed. Like an afterthought. Like a seat filler who'd overstayed his invitation. Somewhere near Sterling, I stopped at a rest area, splashed cold water on my face, and looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't look broken. I didn't even look surprised. Just still. I remembered when Lily had pneumonia. She was 7. I sat on the floor next to her bed for 3 nights straight, waking up every hour to check her breathing. Donna had passed out by 10 each night, but I stayed, holding her little hand while she wheezed like a dying bird. But yeah, let's bring in the sperm donor for the big moment. The man who ghosted before kindergarten and reappeared just in time for catered hors d'oeuvres. I made it to the cabin just before sundown. No one was there. Just me, the trees, the quiet cracking of snow under tire, and the creak of the wooden porch as I carried my bag inside. I built a fire, opened a can of beans, sat in a worn recliner that smelled like tobacco and old cedar. I'd never felt so present. I wasn't angry. Not really. I was done. Not in the screw you all sense. Just done giving breath to people who decided I didn't matter. Done being the man who showed up, paid the bills, swept the floors of other people's messes, and got sidelined the second a ghost from the past walked in with a half-charmed smile. She wanted her real dad? Then let him show up. Let's see how that works out. Donna sat on the edge of Lily's bed, nursing a mug of herbal tea she didn't drink. The room was still scattered with wedding prep chaos, ribbons, a half-zipped dress bag, and 3 unopened Amazon boxes with bride-to-be scribbled across the tape. Lily sat cross-legged on the duvet, scrolling through her phone, her thumb twitching like it was trying to scratch something deeper than skin. He's not mad, Donna said softly, rehearsed. He's just tired. You know how he gets. All that driving, and he needs a few days to clear his head. Lily didn't look up. He could have at least texted back. He will. When he's ready. She nodded like she believed her. But there was that twitch again. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long, golden lines through the blinds. The house was full, caterers were calling. The florist had messed up the peony order, and Donna's sister kept pestering her about table placements. But in Lily's room, there was this strange, sterile silence. Like the air was holding its breath. Like the walls knew something they didn't. Lily opened Instagram, selected a photo of herself at the final dress fitting, veil spilling down her back like foam on champagne. She added a caption without thinking. Can't wait to have both dads walk me down the aisle to arts, #blessed, #fulsarclement, #wedding weekend. She hesitated before posting it. Not because she didn't mean it, because she needed to believe it. The post got 178 likes in 20 minutes. Cousins, friends from grad school, Donna's church circle, heart emojis, prayers. Even a few, "Oh, this is everything" comments. And for a second, just a second, it soothed her. Like maybe her version of reality was the real one. Like maybe Roger's silence was just a hiccup, a weird blip in an otherwise perfect fairy tale. She clicked into her messages. Still no reply from him. Then she checked another thread, the one with the man labeled in her contacts as Biodad. Last message. Lily, hey, just wanted to confirm you're still okay for Saturday? We'll have you enter from the left wing of the garden. Bouquet. Sent 3 days ago. No reply. She frowned. Maybe he was just busy. Or driving. Or bad signal. She told herself 100 versions of that excuse, all as fragile and transparent as tissue paper. Donna noticed the look. She did what Donna always did, smooth things over with soft lies. He'll come through, sweetie. You'll see. Lily didn't answer. She tossed the phone aside and started digging through her drawer for the old silver bracelet Roger gave her when she graduated college. She hadn't worn it in years. It still fit. Barely. Meanwhile, downstairs, Donna's phone buzzed. Roger's contact. One new voicemail. But it wasn't from him. It was an empty message. Static. No voice. Just a long, accidental dial, or maybe a line going dead before anything was said. She deleted it without playing it twice. That's the thing about denial. It needs routine maintenance. You've got to keep sweeping the facts into corners where no one looks. You've got to smile through the growing hairline cracks and tell everyone, he's just tired, even when your own bones know better. At the rehearsal dinner planning session later that evening, Lily brought up the walk again. I was thinking maybe I start with Roger, she said, eyes flickering across the table at Donna, and then halfway down the aisle, I switched to my Biodad. Like a passing the torch moment? Donna nodded slowly. That sounds poetic, but I haven't heard from him yet. A pause. Well, Donna said with a practiced smile, maybe keep it flexible. Men are funny about this kind of thing. Maybe he'll call last minute. Maybe they both will. Lily laughed too loud. Right, because men are so reliable when it comes to weddings. People around the table chuckled politely. No one noticed how she twisted that silver bracelet tied her on her wrist. No one saw her check her phone again under the table, only to find nothing. No missed calls. No texts. She didn't say it out loud, but the thought lingered like a bad smell. What if neither of them show up? But she wouldn't let herself believe it. Not yet. Because fairy tales don't crash until after the last page. And she hadn't said, I do yet. So she smiled, pushed the worry down deep, piled another slice of lemon cake onto her plate, and posted another pre-wedding selfie with the caption, Everything's perfect. Literally can't wait. Ring. It was a lie. But no one noticed yet. The rehearsal dinner was held in the private garden room of a golf club that smelled like money and fresh paint. Everything looked perfect on the surface. White linens, stemmed glassware, string lights overhead glowing just dim enough to hide flaws. Except the one flaw that hovered in every empty chair and hushed glance. Roger wasn't there. They tried to ignore it at first. Toasts were given. Salads were served. Donna made a speech about family through all seasons that no one really understood. The wine poured freely, as if the Merlot could fill the gap where Roger's steady, grounding presence used to be. He'd always hated clubs like this. Too manicured, he'd once said, like drinking from a wax apple. Still, his absence was everywhere. Felt like a missing beam in the ceiling, like something important was holding its breath. It started with small whispers. One of the groom's uncles leaned across the table and asked Donna, Is Roger running late? Donna smiled with too many teeth. Fishing retreat. He's up in the mountains. Needed some time to decompress. You know Roger. Her voice was too high, too rehearsed. It was the kind of excuse that sounded like it was polished on the drive over. Oh, the uncle replied, clearly confused. I thought he was walking Lily down the aisle. She blinked once. Plans changed. He nodded slowly and sipped his beer, pretending not to see the way Lily's shoulders tensed from across the room. Lily stood by the dessert table, glass of white wine trembling in her hand, laughing too loudly at her cousin's story about a bachelorette party mishap. She hadn't eaten anything, just rearranged strawberries on her plate like she was composing a mosaic. Someone behind her asked, "Will Roger be joining us later tonight?" She didn't turn around, just said, "He'll call." And then, quieter, like she meant to convince herself, "Not the room, he always calls." Her fiancé, Eric, had been watching her from a distance, noticing the way she kept checking her phone, the way her laugh cracked at the end, like a windshield under pressure. He walked up behind her and gently placed a hand on her lower back. "You okay?" he asked. She flinched, then quickly masked it with another laugh. "Yeah, just tired. Nerves. You know." Eric nodded, but he didn't smile. The photographer showed up halfway through the night, snapping candid shots for the wedding album. Lily posed with Donna, then with her bridesmaids, then with Eric. When the photographer said, "Can we get one with your dad?" Lily froze. Donna answered before she could. "He's out of town." The photographer frowned, then glanced at Lily for confirmation. She forced a smile and shrugged. "We'll get him tomorrow." It sounded like a lie. It felt like a lie. Because it was a lie. There was no tomorrow. No tuxedo in the closet. No quiet footsteps on the porch. No click of Roger's old lighter as he stood in the yard, watching the stars like he always did when he needed to think. Just a mountain somewhere, and a silence that stretched across the horizon like a scar. During dessert, one of the bridesmaids tried to lighten the mood by pulling out an old yearbook and passing it around the table. Lily laughed at first, at her old haircut, at Eric's braces. But then someone turned to the senior page, and there it was, a note from Roger under her graduation photo. "Wherever you go, I'll walk beside you. Always. Papa." Her laugh caught in her throat. She excused herself and stepped outside into the cool night air. Donna found her 10 minutes later near the back patio, staring out at the manicured green. "You okay, baby?" Donna asked, wrapping a shawl around her daughter's bare shoulders. Lily nodded, but her lips were pale. "He's really not coming, is he?" Donna opened her mouth, closed it, then lied again. "He just needs space. He'll be there tomorrow." Lily didn't answer. She stared at the distant flag on the 9th hole like she could will Roger into existence. Back inside, someone joked about calling him with a megaphone. Another guest asked if the biodad was doing a speech. Donna laughed at that one. Oh, he's not really the speech type. Which was true, because he hadn't even shown up. What no one said, what they all felt, was that something was breaking. Quietly, privately, in Lily's posture, in Donna's twitching fingers, in the empty place where Roger was supposed to sit, with his hands folded, his tie crooked, and that steady, unmovable look in his eyes that always said, "You're safe." But he wasn't there, and no one could pretend that didn't matter. Eric found her by the koi pond behind the reception hall. It was the only quiet spot left. Everything else buzzed, staff loading glassware, Donna arguing with the event planner over tablecloth shades, bridesmaids laughing too loud, too often. But here, among the gurgling water and drifting lily pads, it felt like a different world. One where truth had a chance to slip through the cracks. Lily sat on a bench, still in the satin rehearsal dress, hugging her knees. Her phone lay face up beside her, screen dark. It hadn't buzzed in over an hour. Eric sat beside her, not touching her, just close enough to be honest. "You sure about this?" he asked softly. Lily didn't look at him. "About what?" "This. Us. The wedding. The ceremony. The walk." Her jaw tightened. "It's just a walk, Eric." "No, it's not." His voice didn't rise. If anything, it dipped, measured, careful. "You're giving someone a place in your story. Front row. Spotlight. That's not just a walk." She finally looked at him then. Tired eyes. Not angry, just scraped raw. "I wanted him to feel included," she whispered. "Who?" "The man who hasn't returned your calls. The guy who vanished for your entire childhood. then popped up for the free cake and applause. Lily flinched, but not because it was cruel. Because it wasn't. Eric leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You know who doesn't feel included? The man who taught you to drive in the church parking lot, who sat through every biology project, who came to your grad school defense in a suit 2 sizes too big because he didn't want to spend your rent money on tailoring. She opened her mouth, closed it. He continued, softer now, but unrelenting. Roger raised you, loved you, funded half this wedding, and he wasn't even asked. She swallowed. Her eyes fell to her lap. She picked at her bracelet again, the silver one Roger gave her when she got her acceptance letter to Columbia. It had been too loose back then. Now it dug slightly into her wrist. She hadn't taken it off since the morning he disappeared without a word. I thought it would be symbolic. Like mending something, she said. Eric turned his head. Mending what? She shrugged. That empty part. The not knowing. The wondering why I wasn't enough for him to stay back then. I thought maybe this would fix it. Eric let the silence hang. He wasn't going to rescue her from it. It had to burn first. And Roger? He asked. She exhaled sharply. I didn't think it would hurt him. That hung there like poison. Eric stood up and paced a few steps toward the pond. The fish moved in lazy circles, oblivious to all of it. You didn't think. He didn't spit it. It came out flat, almost sad. Because he was always there. Because you thought he'd stay no matter what. Her voice cracked. Isn't that what love is supposed to be? No, he said, turning back to her. Love isn't about putting someone last just because you assume they'll forgive you. She looked like she wanted to argue, but the argument never came. Her mouth stayed open, empty. He walked back to the bench and sat beside her again. You don't have to say it, he murmured. But you know he deserved better than a substitution. She nodded once. Tiny, almost imperceptible. Eric leaned back and looked up at the sky. You still want me to meet your father tomorrow? The other one. Lily didn't answer. They sat there like that for a long time. Two people dressed in white, slowly realizing that not all stains come from outside. Eventually, Lily's phone buzzed. She looked down, hopeful, then immediately dimmed. Mom, she muttered, wants to know if I've picked the music for the aisle. Eric stared at her. You going to walk down it like this? With all this noise? She hesitated, then stood. I don't know, she whispered. And for the first time since the whole charade began, she looked afraid. Not nervous, not bridal, afraid. Because deep down, in the place where all the expensive dresses and curated hashtags can't reach, she finally felt the fracture. Not the loud one, with yelling and slammed doors. The quiet one. The one that comes when someone who truly loved you leaves. The string quartet began to play. That polished, overeager version of canon in D that's supposed to signal elegance, poise, tradition, all the things that Lily had planned down to the second. Rows of guests in linen and silk rose from their seats in unison, like choreographed worshippers at a holy event. Every phone lifted, every smile poised, every eye turned to the doors at the end of the garden aisle, expecting the fairy tale, expecting a man, a father. But the doors didn't open. Not immediately. There was a bead of confusion, so small it could have been a hiccup in the audio equipment. Then another. The quartet kept playing, oblivious. The violinist's bow arced in delicate strokes, unaware that everyone else was holding their breath. Still nothing. Behind the doors, Lily stood gripping her bouquet so tightly the stems were bending. Her knuckles were white. Her eyes, dry, blinking too fast, flicked from side to side. He's not here, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the music. The wedding coordinator, standing off to the side with a headset and clipboard, leaned in. Just give him a minute. Maybe traffic. But they both knew it wasn't traffic. The bridesmaids exchanged glances. The maid of honor took a half step forward, unsure if she should signal someone. A few guests turned to each other with polite confusion, the kind that precedes gossip. One of the groomsmen leaned toward Eric, who was standing at the altar, hands clasped. Something wrong. Eric didn't answer. He watched the doors, watched the tiny tremble in Lily's silhouette through the frosted glass, watched her shoulders twitch once, like something had cracked. Then a bridesmaid whispered it, softly, but loud enough for everyone in the front rows to hear. Where is he? Nobody answered. A few people looked back toward the reception area, as if Roger might come jogging up the aisle last minute, tie crooked, apologies in hand, laughter to cover the wound. But no one came, and that's when the music faltered. The violinist lost the rhythm for a split second, just enough to jolt the illusion, enough to expose the wires holding it all together. Lily exhaled a tiny, broken sound. One of the bridesmaids touched her arm. "Do you want me to walk with you?" she whispered. Lily didn't respond. She stared through the glass at the guests, her guests, watching this moment like it was a play. And she realized something. There was no act, no curtain, no rescue, just reality. And in that reality, Roger was gone. Not missing, not late, gone. The door finally creaked open. Lily stepped forward alone. The quartet had switched to another song, one not originally meant for this moment. It was softer, awkward in its timing. It didn't matter. People smiled, but it was thinner now, stretched. Donna sat in the second row, expression frozen, hands in her lap. Her phone buzzed in her clutch again and again, but she didn't move. Her lipstick was smudged at the corner. She looked straight ahead and didn't blink. As Lily took her first step down the aisle, a child somewhere whispered, "Why is she alone?" The question floated in the air like pollen. Lily didn't hear it. Or maybe she did. She kept walking, one foot in front of the other, bouquet still bent, her heels barely touching the gravel path. Her eyes were fixed on Eric. But even from 20 feet away, he could see it. The fracture had spread. She was holding it together the way a person holds a dam with bare hands. You could tell it wouldn't last. As she reached him, he didn't speak. Just reached out, gently, and steadied her elbow. When the officiant began the opening line, there was a flutter of movement behind them. Someone was checking their phone. 3 guests had already seen it. The post. The one Lily had written 4 days ago. "Can't wait to have both dads walk me down the aisle, 2 hearts, #blessed. And underneath it, edit, change plans. Walking solo. Strong women walk themselves. Flexed biceps, medium light skin tone ring. But they all knew what that edit really meant. And so did she. The bridal suite was quiet now. The makeup artist had packed up. The hairdresser was long gone. Even the photographer had retreated downstairs to get candids of the guests sipping champagne and pretending not to gossip. Lily stood by the full-length mirror, veil clipped loosely into place, dress zipped, bouquet still on the table. She looked like a statue in a museum display, flawless but frozen. Unmoved. Unreal. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Just once. She didn't rush to check it. She walked over slowly, like someone approaching a trap. A single text. No name. Just a number she'd never bothered to save. "Can't make it." That's all. 3 words. No punctuation. No apology. Not even a period to pretend it mattered. She blinked at the screen, like it might morph into something else if she stared hard enough. Then again. Then again. But it didn't change. "Mom," she called, her voice strangely hollow. Donna entered, already dressed in her powder blue gown, adjusting an earring with one hand, clutch in the other. She looked composed. Too composed. Lily turned toward her, phone still in hand. "He's not coming." Donna paused, read the message, and exhaled through her nose. Not surprised. Not upset. Just confirming what she already knew. "I thought he would," Lily said quietly. Donna didn't answer right away. Just moved behind Lily and started fixing the veil, her hands automatic. Lily's reflection stared back at her. Pale. Not ethereal, drained. A bride with no anchor. "He said he would," she added. "He promised." Donna finished with the veil. Then, gently, "He hasn't answered any of my calls either." Lily looked over her shoulder. And Roger. That name landed differently now. It wasn't thrown. It wasn't angry. It wasn't desperate. It was real. Donna hesitated. Just enough. Then, he turned off his phone. Lily's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her lips quivered, then steadied. Her face contorted for a second, like she was trying to remember how to keep it all together. She sat on the edge of the vanity stool, bouquet untouched, veil suddenly feeling like a curtain choking her shoulders. "I chose wrong," she whispered. Donna stiffened. "I thought giving him that moment would heal something," Lily said, voice cracking. "I thought if I just invited him back in, it would make sense again. Like I could rewrite all the birthdays he missed. All the next time, kiddo voicemails. I thought, if he showed up for this." She trailed off. Donna reached out, but Lily pulled away. Not angrily. Just, softly. Like touching would shatter the illusion entirely. I pushed Roger away for a man who couldn't even commit to showing up with a parking pass. The air in the room changed. The kind of silence that follows the last lie collapsing. The kind that makes a woman realize she isn't just heartbroken, she's embarrassed. Not just hurt, but exposed. "Mom," Lily said, looking up with glassy eyes. "What did Roger say when I picked the other man?" Donna swallowed. Her clutch trembled slightly in her grip. "He didn't argue. He just packed a bag." "Did he ask why?" "No." "Did you?" Donna finally sat beside her. "I thought you'd change your mind. That you'd come to your senses before the ceremony." Lily laughed then. "Just once." A dry, bitter chuckle that didn't sound anything like joy. "He raised me. He was there for everything. And she stopped herself. Took a breath so deep her ribs shook. "I didn't just replace him. I erased him." Downstairs, music began to swell. The signal. It was time. But Lily didn't stand. Her phone lay face up on the table. The text still there. 3 words. A man who couldn't be bothered to show up, not even when handed the spotlight. Not even when all he had to do was walk. She looked back into the mirror one last time. Not as a bride, but as a daughter who had finally realized that biology doesn't raise you. Presence does. Sacrifice does. Consistency does. And she had thrown all of that away for a ghost. The first tear came before she reached the door. The second before she reached the stairs. By the time she stepped into the hallway, the mascara was already smudged, and the regret had already rooted itself deep. The sun hadn't climbed fully over the peaks yet, but the sky was already that deep, silent blue you only get at elevation, where the clouds look carved and the air feels like it doesn't owe anyone anything. Roger stood ankle-deep in the river, boots half-frozen from the meltwater, rod in hand, tying a woolly bugger to his line with slow, steady fingers. The current moved like time itself, relentless, cold, uncaring. He liked it here. Here, the trout didn't lie. They didn't post photo captions about healing while burning bridges in real time. They didn't say Papa for 20 years and then replace him like a broken porch light. They weren't disappointed if you didn't show up in a tuxedo. They weren't grateful if you did. They just swam. He cast once, far upstream, wrist flicked sharp, line slicing the air with a soft hiss. The fly landed just past a bend, drifted, then disappeared in the glint of a ripple. Nothing bit. Perfect. His phone buzzed in his coat pocket. He didn't look at it. The sound felt almost foreign here, like it belonged to another life. A life where his name got left off the seating chart, right below stepfather, optional. A blue jay cried somewhere overhead. Snow capped the ridge line like white fire. The wind moved through the pine branches in long, sweeping strokes, brushing everything clean. Roger reached for his thermos, coffee gone cold hours ago, and took a sip anyway. Bitterness suited him today. Felt honest. The phone buzzed again. A low, insistent tremor against his thigh. He reached down, slowly, like a man deciding whether to open a box marked fragile, history inside. Pulled it out. Screen lit. 27 missed calls. Names, Donna. Lily. Unknown numbers. A few texts that previewed words like please, come back, and emergency. He scrolled through them without opening a single one. The thumbnail previews were enough. A digital panic attack. One message read, "It's a disaster. She needs you." He stared at that one a little longer. Not because it moved him, but because it didn't. He pressed the lock button. Screen went black. Then he shut the whole thing off and slipped it into the bottom of his tackle bag, underneath the extra weights and a torn map of the lake system. He breathed in deep, air sharp as glass. This was peace. Not the kind that comes from forgiveness. Not the kind from closure. Those are myths people sell each other to sleep better. This was something colder, older. A peace born from subtraction. From removing yourself from the story entirely and letting the narrative collapse under its own weight. He wasn't angry. That part had dissolved somewhere around mile 200. He wasn't even sad anymore. He was free. And freedom, as it turns out, doesn't always look like a man galloping into the sunset. Sometimes it looks like a quiet river, a fly rod, a missed phone call that never gets returned. Another cast. The line whispered through the air again, landed smooth, drifted, and finally, the tension left his shoulders. She could have had him there. She chose an echo instead. Now, all she had left was silence, and he wasn't about to interrupt it. The cabin creaked with the kind of stillness that makes you hear your own blood. Night in the Rockies didn't whisper, it pressed in. No distant hum of traffic, no glow of streetlights, just pine shadows and the occasional groan of wood settling into cold. Roger sat in the old recliner by the fire, boots off, wool socks up on a cedar footstool. The fishing rod leaned against the hearth, the tip still wet from a late cast. The fire had started to dim, throwing orange veins across the walls, dancing over his lined face as he stared down at the phone in his lap. Powered on, finally. He had waited all day to check it. Maybe out of curiosity, maybe out of ritual, not out of hope. He had none of that left for them. First, the voicemails. He didn't play a single one, but the previews said enough. Roger, please. Call us. She needs you. She didn't know. Come back. Please. Some were from Donna, her voice tighter with each new attempt, like she was trying to hold the collapsing narrative together with manicured fingers and grace quotes. Others were from Lily. Fewer, but raw. Are you safe? I messed up. Can we talk? I'm sorry. I didn't think you'd actually leave. That one stayed on the screen for a few seconds longer. Roger's thumb hovered above it. Not to respond, just to see if any part of him still itched to say something. He didn't. Because he realized something in that moment, sitting there with only a half-drained thermos and the sound of wind slithering through pine. They weren't reaching out because they saw him. They were reaching out because their world had tilted and they wanted their ballast back. They wanted him not as a person, but as a role. The rock. The backstop. The ghost that shows up when everything else falls apart. But the ghost was gone. He opened the message thread. Scroll. Please call. Lily is inconsolable. Donna told me everything. I should have known better. I understand now. You were always there. He wasn't. I don't know what I was thinking. And finally, simple, late, pathetic. I'm sorry. Roger leaned back in the chair. His bones ached less than usual. Maybe it was the altitude. Maybe it was the absence of weight he didn't realize he'd been carrying until it was gone. He clicked select all, took one last look, then deleted them. Not out of anger, but because there was no conversation left to have. There would be no dramatic reunion in a cafe with tearful apologies and shaky hands. No soft piano music while someone said, I didn't know what I had until it was gone. They didn't know. They just thought they could call it back when it suited them. But Roger wasn't a dog. He wasn't a second option. He was a man who gave decades of his life, quietly, consistently, and got blindsided in return by a daughter chasing Instagram-worthy sentiment, and a wife who couldn't be bothered to defend him at the table where it mattered. The fire cracked. A log shifted. He put the phone down. Not face up, not face down. Just away. And for the first time in weeks, he didn't think about what they might say next. Because the chapter had closed. Not with a slammed door, but with a soft, deliberate silence no one knew how to read. And no one would ever answer. The bell above the hardware store door gave a tired jingle as Roger stepped inside, the kind that hadn't changed since 1974 and didn't care to start now. The place smelled like cedar mulch, motor oil, and time. Familiar, honest smells. A man could walk through these aisles and not feel judged for buying screws instead of apologies. He moved slow. Not out of age, he still had the spine of a Navy tech, but out of intention. He wasn't in a hurry. The town was small. Word traveled faster than brake fluid on tile, but he hadn't bothered checking who'd said what. Let them guess. Let them need answers. He'd run out of them years ago. He picked up a bag of birdseed. The good stuff, sunflower heavy, not that cheap millet nonsense. The birds at the cabin had started recognizing his truck already. One bold bastard of a jay even waited on the railing each morning like a roommate. As he turned the corner past the fertilizer shelves, he heard it. Roger. A voice like wet paper trying to fold itself back into something useful. He didn't turn. Not at first. Roger, wait. Then he saw her. Donna. Same beige trench coat she wore to church when she wanted to look respectable. Same pearl earrings. Except now they didn't catch the light the same way. The confidence that used to pin her spine straight had drained somewhere along the aisle of bad choices. Her face looked thinner. Eyes puffy but painted. The kind of makeup you put on not to be seen, but to cover that you've been crying for days and still think you deserve the dignity of mascara. Please, she said again, voice cracking this time. Just a minute. Roger looked at her. No fury. No smugness. No hunger for drama. Just clarity. That cold, final kind of clarity a man finds when he's past rescue and realizes the rescue was never for him anyway. They stood like that, maybe 3 feet apart, maybe 10 years. She swallowed. I didn't mean for any of it to happen that way. She didn't know what she was asking. And I should have stopped her. Roger blinked once. The birdseed rustled in his grip. You were right to leave, she said, quickly, before he could disappear again. But please, just talk to her. She's shattered. She thinks she lost you for good. Silence. The kind that hums. Donna's lip trembled. I told her the truth, finally. About what you gave up. About how much you. Roger didn't nod. Didn't interrupt. Just watched her. And when her words started to stumble, when the guilt began flooding her voice instead of pacing it, he exhaled softly. It wasn't pity. It was detachment. That sacred detachment that comes when a man's grief dies and all that's left is discipline. He stepped around her, birdseed slung over one shoulder. She reached out, instinctively, as if to grab something that had already walked off years ago. Roger, please. Say something. He paused, just for a breath, looked her straight in the eye, then walked past. No words. No hate. Just nothing. And in that moment, she felt it. Felt the cost of every silent choice she had defended. Felt what it was to be invisible to a man who had once loved her so fully, he gave her his name and his daughter everything else. She stood frozen in the aisle, hands still half lifted, like a photograph caught mid-collapse. And Roger? He paid in cash, nodded to the clerk, walked out with birdseed, dignity, and silence. And that, more than any scream, slap, or speech, was the end of her story and his. I held her when she got her first period. Drove through a blizzard once because she was scared at a sleepover. Paid for braces. Got screamed at for refusing to let her go to Cancun with her boyfriend when she was 16. Bought her a used Corolla the day she got into college. And apparently, none of it meant a damn thing. Rachel didn't even look up from her phone when she said it. She's thinking of moving in with her real dad. Just like that. Like she was reading off a grocery list. She didn't even say Jenna's name, just she. As if Jenna was already halfway out of our lives. I was standing by the kitchen counter, my hands still wet from rinsing out my thermos. For a moment, I thought I misheard her. I was tired. Maybe she meant for the summer? Maybe Greg, the real dad, had offered to help with an internship or something. I asked, what about school? Rachel tucked a loose hair behind her ear and sighed like she was already bored of the conversation. She wants him to help now. She says it's about reconnecting. Reconnecting. I wiped my hands on the towel. My knuckles had turned white. I didn't even know I was gripping the edge of the counter that hard. Reconnect, I repeated. After what? 15 years of radio silence. He's trying, she said. And she's old enough to choose. Old enough. That's rich. Old enough to choose the man who missed every birthday since she was 10. Who didn't show up for her high school graduation. Who sent a Facebook thumbs up when she got into college instead of a phone call. But sure. Let's reconnect. I didn't say any of that. I just nodded once and walked out of the kitchen. Upstairs, I sat on the edge of the bed we hadn't shared in over a year. Not really. Rachel still slept there. But emotionally? We'd been co-tenants with good credit scores and bad timing. I stared at the small jewelry box on her dresser. The one I bought her on our 5th anniversary. She hadn't touched it in months. A thin layer of dust dulled the shine. In the closet, behind a row of shirts I never wore, I found the thick envelope labeled Jenna, fall term. Tuition was due in 2 weeks. We'd planned ahead, of course I had. I always did. Financial aid covered some, but we'd agreed to split the rest. I walked back downstairs, my boots heavy on the floorboards I'd laid myself. Set up my desk. Logged into the bank. Removed my name as cosigner. Click. Logged into the college portal. Canceled the pending payment authorization from my account. Click. Went into my email drafts and deleted the message I'd written last month asking if she needed anything for her dorm. Click. I stared at the screen for a while after that. Not doing anything. Just being still. Outside, the wind picked up. A storm was coming. The windows groaned, like the house knew something was breaking. I stood up and turned off the desk lamp. In the hallway, Rachel walked past me toward the laundry room, her arms full of towels. She didn't ask what I was doing, didn't even glance at me. And that was the softest goodbye I ever got. No tears, no arguments, just silence and a few quiet clicks. The morning I dropped off her mini fridge, Jenna barely looked up from her phone. "Thanks, Frank," she muttered, tapping out a text while I hauled it up 3 flights of stairs at the dorms. No elevator, of course. Concrete steps, peeling walls. The whole place smelled like instant ramen and body spray. She didn't ask how my back was. Didn't offer to help. Just let the door close behind her as I stood in the hall, fridge in one hand, box of kitchen supplies in the other. I set everything down in silence. Inside her room, 2 other girls giggled over something on a laptop. One of them glanced up at me with the vague politeness you give to someone's uncle or Uber driver, like I was just another errand. Jenna didn't want to handle herself. Jenna was rearranging a tiny cactus on the windowsill. She'd named it once. She used to tell me when it grew a new nub, back when I pretended to care about succulents, and she pretended I was enough. "You good?" I asked. She nodded, still not looking at me. "Yeah, just trying to get settled. Greg might swing by later with a desk lamp." I said. No sarcasm. Just that. A sound. Greg might swing by. Of course. I stood there for a moment longer, watching the sunlight spill over her textbooks. One still had the bookstore receipt inside, untouched. I could hear her dorm mates laughing. One of them had a fake British accent, and it was driving me nuts. I didn't say goodbye, just tapped her shoulder gently and left. She didn't notice I paused by the RA's office to pay the $37 parking fine she'd already forgotten about. Didn't see me later that day, sitting in the cab of my truck with a manila folder on the passenger seat. Inside, my final favor. I wired the remaining half of her tuition from my personal account. Quietly. No fanfare. No emojis. No thanks, Frank. She'd never know that without that wire, she would have been locked out of class registration that Monday. She thought Greg would come through. She told Rachel he'd figured things out this time. Sure he had. I kept the receipt, folded it once, neat and crisp, and placed it inside the glove box next to her old softball photo. The one where her braces shone, and she smiled so wide I thought my heart would explode. Then I drove to First State Bank and shut down the shared student account she'd been using for books, meal plans, and impulse Etsy garbage. I didn't tell her. No warning. No drama. I walked out of the bank with a small envelope of cashier's checks, not because I needed the money, but because I needed the act. I needed to feel the finality. Like closing a drawer. Like locking a door behind me. Back home, Rachel was on the couch, flipping through a home renovation magazine she'd never act on. "She got an okay?" she asked, still staring at the page. "She did," I said. "She mentioned Greg's bringing her that lamp." I said nothing. Rachel looked up, maybe expecting me to react. I didn't. She waited a few seconds, then went back to the article. That night, I sat on the porch and smoked the last of the cigars Jenna had given me for Father's Day 2 years ago. She'd picked them out herself. The card said, "To the man who fixes everything." I let the ashes fall into an empty coffee mug. Then I crushed them down with the tip of my boot until there was nothing left but dust. And in that quiet, something in me, something solid, dependable, lovingly naive, finally let go. "Thanks, Frank." That's all she said. No eye contact. No, "I'll miss you." No, "Take care." Just a quick hug, more of a shoulder bump. Really, before she turned back toward her dorm hallway, one hand already digging into her tote bag for a chapstick or her earbuds or God knows what. I could still smell the vanilla body spray she wore in high school. Same scent. Different girl. Rachel had stayed in the car. She said her ankle hurt. Claimed the steps would flare it up again. But I knew the truth. She didn't want to walk me to the door of the life I'd just been evicted from. So I stood alone on that cement landing, watching Jenna disappear into the cluttered hallway, her name already forgotten by the girl she'd chosen over me. I let the door close behind her. Didn't knock. Didn't call out. Just stood there a second too long like some misplaced piece of furniture. When I got back to the car, Rachel was scrolling on her phone. Probably Pinterest. Maybe looking up air fryer recipes she'd never make. "You good?" she asked. I still glued to the screen. "Yeah," I said. "We're all good." She nodded, and that was it. "No, what's next for you?" No, you okay with all this? Just silence, brittle as old paint. Back at the house, I started packing that same night. Tools first, always tools first. It's how I understand the world. Socket sets, calipers, levels, and chisels, all wrapped in old t-shirts, packed neat in Rubbermaid bins. I left the lathe, though. Too heavy. Too many memories tied to its hum. Next was Jenna's old bike. Pink frame, rust on the spokes. She hadn't touched it since middle school, but I'd oiled the chain every spring just in case. I loaded it into the truck bed and dropped it off at a local shelter. The volunteer smiled. Said some girl would love it. I didn't answer. By midnight, the house was quiet. Rachel had gone to bed without a word. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the faint outline her coffee mug left on the counter every morning. Then I wiped it clean. The next morning, I slipped out before sunrise. No note. No luggage at the front door. Just me, my truck, and a thermos of bad gas station coffee. I didn't tell Rachel about the cabin. Didn't tell Jenna I was leaving town. Didn't even take my phone charger. I drove north, windows cracked, letting the wind cut through the last heat of August. I passed the county line before the sun even cleared the treetops. By the time I crossed into Minnesota, the only thing behind me was static. The cabin sat quiet on the edge of a shallow lake, surrounded by pine and mosquito hum. No cell signal, no television, just a generator, an old propane stove, and a cot with a thin mattress. Perfect. I set my toolbox on the porch and didn't go inside for hours. Just stood there, hands on the railing, listening. No footsteps. No questions. No one asking what I was doing there or when I'd be back. And for the first time in years, maybe ever, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an answer. Jenna stared at the unopened IKEA box in her living room like it personally offended her. It had been sitting there for 3 days, still sealed, corners slightly dented from where she'd dragged it across the floor. A cheap desk she ordered with a discount code and leftover bookstore money. She figured Greg would help put it together. That's what dads do, right? She'd even texted him ahead of time. Hey, if you're free Saturday, maybe we can knock this out? Would love to catch up. He responded at 1:13 a.m. with a thumbs up emoji and, absolutely. Can't wait, kiddo. Saturday came and went. No Greg. Sunday morning, she woke up to a message. Sorry, sweetheart. Got caught up at work. Rain check? She read it twice, then typed, no problem, smiley face, and tossed her phone face down on the pillow. Her roommate Emily asked if she wanted help with the desk. Nah, Jenna said. My dad's just busy. He'll come through. She said it like it was fact. Like it had to be true. But that desk sat untouched another week. Then the microwave stopped working. She texted Greg again. Hey, think you could swing by with a tool set? I think the outlet's busted. No reply. She waited a full day before following up with, or maybe I can come to you? This time, she got a voice memo. 45 seconds of Greg rambling in his car, traffic noises in the background, about how things were nuts right now, and work's got him doing double shifts, and we'll figure something out soon, baby girl. She smiled when she listened to it. Played it twice, actually, just to hear him say baby girl. But then she noticed he didn't ask how school was going. Didn't ask if she'd eaten. Just talked. Just noise. 2 days later, her roommate's dad drove 6 hours to drop off a futon and a full grocery haul. Jenna stayed in her room. She scrolled through old photos on her phone. One from senior year, Frank, in a dusty flannel, standing beside her at the DMV after she passed her road test. He was holding the car keys like they were made of gold. She had posted it on Instagram with the caption, couldn't have done it without my bonus dad Red Heart. Funny how fast a bonus becomes an afterthought. Tuition came up again in conversation when she met with her academic advisor. We still haven't received your final balance, he said gently. Just a heads up, registration for spring won't open until it's cleared. Oh, yeah, it's coming. My dad's handling it. She meant Greg. He wasn't. She tried calling him that night. Straight to voicemail. She tried again the next morning. Still nothing. The following weekend, he finally texted back. Hey, had some stuff come up. Let me circle back. Circle back. What the hell did that even mean? He wasn't a corporate manager. He was a bartender with a weed habit and a gym membership he hadn't used in 6 months. Jenna stared at the message for a long time before setting her phone down and walking outside barefoot. The air smelled like fried oil from the student union. Her stomach turned. When she came back inside, Emily was on the floor putting the desk together herself. Figured I'd just get started, Emily said. You can owe me a coffee. Jenna nodded, said thank you, then shut herself in her room and didn't come out until morning. She didn't cry. Not yet. But for the first time, she didn't check her phone before bed. Jenna saw the subject line during her morning lecture. Action required. Tuition payment rejected. At first, she thought it was a phishing email. Some scam. She almost deleted it until she noticed the .edu address was real and the student ID number matched hers. Her stomach tightened. She opened the email. Skimmed. Read it again. Your recent tuition payment was returned due to insufficient account authorization. Please resolve your balance within 7 business days to avoid course registration holds or possible suspension of campus housing privileges. She stopped breathing around the words suspension. Her mouth went dry. She left class without grabbing her bag. Outside, her fingers shook as she dialed Rachel. Hello. Her mom's voice, casual, distracted. Did you see the email? Jenna's voice cracked. What email? My tuition. It bounced. The check bounced. There was a pause. Wait, I thought Frank was. Well, he's not, Jenna snapped. I thought you were keeping an eye on that. I haven't talked to him in weeks, Rachel said. I thought you were the one. Jenna, I don't even know where he is. Jenna stood by a row of campus mailboxes, gripping her phone like it owed her something. She exhaled through her nose, sharp and trembling. I don't have that money, she said. Do you? Rachel didn't answer. So Jenna tried Greg. He picked up on the third ring, sounding like he'd just woken up. What's up, sweetie? My tuition bounced, she said. Wait, seriously? Yes, seriously. You said you'd take care of the rest. Hang on. The sound of him fumbling with something, probably a vape pen. Didn't you say your stepdad paid for this stuff? Didn't he already cover it? I thought he would, she whispered, then louder. I thought he would. Greg sighed. All right. Chill. How much are we talking? She told him. Dead silence on the line. I mean, I can try to pull some stuff together, he said slowly. But that's like, a lot. Like, way more than I expected. Why didn't Frank say anything? He's not answering, she said. He hasn't texted. He hasn't called. He's just gone. You sure? Pretty damn sure, she snapped. Greg clicked his tongue, the universal sign of someone not planning to help, but trying to sound like they're thinking really hard. Look, I'll call you back later, all right? I gotta figure something out. He didn't. That night, Jenna sat cross-legged on her dorm bed, staring at her laptop. She opened her campus financial portal. The balance was in red. Due immediately, $6,122.14. She stared at the number like it might blink or change if she waited long enough. It didn't. She opened her phone, scrolled through old texts from Frank. The last one had been almost a month ago. Fridge should be cold enough after 2 hours. Don't plug anything else into that wall. Breaker's finicky. No love you. No check-in after the move. Just appliance instructions. She opened the contact and tapped call. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. Still nothing. Then she texted him. Frank, please. Something's wrong. Can we talk? The 3 dots never appeared. She left her phone screen on until it dimmed and went dark. And that night, as the silence pressed heavier than ever, she finally began to understand. Frank hadn't forgotten her. He wasn't angry. He was done. Rachel called 6 times before noon. Then she left a voicemail. You didn't have to do this, Frank. I mean, God, you knew tuition was due. You knew how important this semester was. Are you punishing her? Or me? What kind of man just disappears when his family needs him? You raised her. You were there when Greg wasn't. Now you vanish? She's falling apart, Frank. He listened to the message on speaker while he carved notches into a pine beam by the lake, measuring out dovetails he wasn't in a rush to finish. He didn't delete it. Didn't save it either. Just let it sit in his inbox, unheard by anyone but the squirrels and the hum of distant loons. An hour later, another voicemail came in. This is sabotage. That's what this is. You're trying to teach her a lesson or whatever twisted thing you've cooked up in that quiet little brain of yours. You know she's not ready for this. You're punishing her for picking her father. He paused the recording at that word, father, and smiled to himself, one of those dry, corner-of-the-mouth smiles that didn't reach his eyes. Meanwhile, Jenna had stopped eating. She wasn't starving herself, exactly, just distracted. Late nights pacing the common room, staring at her bank app like it might grow zeros if she stared long enough. Her roommate, Emily, offered to lend her money. "No," Jenna said. "It's not your problem." Emily hesitated. "I mean, wasn't Frank always the one paying for stuff?" Jenna didn't answer. Another friend chimed in over lunch. "I thought Frank was the one who drove you to every school trip. Didn't he build that shelf in your room from scratch?" Someone else added, "Didn't he take you prom dress shopping?" Jenna pushed her tray away, lost her appetite completely. The questions kept coming. Quiet ones, whispered in corners, posted as throwaway comments on old Instagram pictures she hadn't thought about in years. One photo showed Frank under the hood of her Corolla, grease on his shirt, a hand raised to block the sun as he grinned like the proudest dad in Omaha. The caption had said, "He fixes everything, even my panic attacks." Now she couldn't even look at it. She tried texting him again. "Can we please talk?" No reply. Then, "I miss you. I made a mistake. I just need 5 minutes, Frank." 5 minutes. Still nothing. Meanwhile, Greg had gone back to one-word responses. When she texted about the bursar holding her registration, he replied, "Yikes." When she asked if he could send something, anything, even just $100 toward fees, he ghosted her completely. Rachel started lashing out. First at Jenna, then at herself. She paced the living room muttering about how she should have known better, and how Greg always finds a way to disappear when the check comes due. Once, Rachel blurted, if Frank hadn't gotten his feelings hurt. Jenna exploded. He didn't get his feelings hurt. He got replaced. Rachel went quiet after that. They both did. The silence filled the house, thicker than drywall dust. The kind that creeps into your throat and makes it hard to swallow. And slowly, Jenna's image of Greg, the cool dad, the guy with the tattoos and Spotify playlists and relaxed parenting began to crack. Because the cool dad was nowhere. And the man she'd left behind? He was silent. Not cruel. Not bitter. Just gone. By the third day without a response, Jenna started counting Greg's lies like tally marks on a prison wall. Can't talk now. I'm slammed. Forgot my wallet. Can I Venmo you later? Didn't see your text till this morning, sorry. Each one had sounded fine in the moment. Reasonable. Even sympathetic. But now, stacked together in her head, they stank like cheap cologne on a bad first date. And now? Now there was nothing. No call. No reply. No, "Hey kiddo, hang in there." Just unread messages and a status bubble that hadn't blinked green since Thursday. She tried his Instagram. He'd posted a story 2 nights ago, a selfie from a bar. Captioned, "Whiskey Wednesdays with the boys." He looked flushed. Happy. A blonde barely in frame leaned toward him like she didn't care who saw. That was the same night she texted him, "Can you please help me with even part of the tuition?" He'd seen it. No response. The void was now a living thing. A shadow crawling up her throat. Her RA knocked one night to check if everything was okay after she missed 3 classes in a row. Jenna said it was just allergies. Rachel tried organizing a group call. One of those awkward FaceTime Frankenstein things where everyone's frozen and talking over each other. Jenna didn't even know how her mom convinced Greg to pick up. Frank didn't join. She knew he saw the invite, he had to. He still shared the family Apple calendar. His name popped up on the invite list. But he never even declined. Just ignored it. Greg made it 5 minutes and before, his connection dropped. He never called back. Rachel cried after the call ended. Jenna didn't. Instead, she went digging. Found an old photo in her Google Drive. From her 16th birthday. Her hair curled. Wearing that off-shoulder blue dress she swore she'd outgrown. Frank stood beside her in a baggy flannel, holding up a cake shaped like a car key. She remembered how embarrassed she'd been. She begged for something cooler. But he made the cake himself. Vanilla with strawberry filling. She posted the picture on Instagram with the caption, "Wish I'd known what I had." Then she waited. 10 minutes. No likes. No comments. Not even from Emily. Not even a pity emoji from the weird girl in her poli-sci class who liked everything. Just nothing. It sat there like a ghost. A private confession broadcast into a room full of people pretending not to hear it. By midnight, she almost deleted it. But she didn't. Instead, she stared at her phone for another hour, flicking between apps like a gambler waiting for a jackpot that wouldn't come. The silence wasn't just online, it was inside. Heavy. Absolute. Like a hand pressed against her throat. For the first time, she didn't just miss Frank. She mourned him. And somehow, that was worse. Professor Whitlow paused mid-lecture when he noticed Jenna staring straight ahead, her pen unmoving in her hand, eyes glassy but stubborn. It wasn't the first time. She'd been fading from her own life for weeks, showing up but not present, like someone on autopilot with a dying battery. After class, he caught her at the door. "Miss Kendrick." She blinked, slow and dazed. "Yeah, you all right?" "I'm fine." It was mechanical. Hollow. He didn't push. Just handed her the graded essay she hadn't picked up last week. "If you ever need to talk." "I'm around." Jenna opened her mouth to say thank you and felt something catch in her throat. "I think I messed up," she said instead. Quiet. Almost embarrassed. Professor Whitlow didn't nod or frown or ask for more. He just waited. "I pushed someone out who didn't deserve it," she continued, voice barely above a whisper. "And now it's like he doesn't exist. Like I broke something I don't know how to fix." He placed the paper in her hand gently. "Sometimes the silence isn't punishment. It's grief." She left his office and didn't cry until she got back to her dorm. The words echoed long after. Back in Omaha, the silence around Rachel wasn't grief. It was judgment. It started at the grocery store. Mrs. Travers, the checkout lady, who used to chat endlessly about coupons and grandkids, suddenly had somewhere to be. Didn't even say goodbye. Then the mailman, Pete, stopped asking how Jenna's semester was going. Didn't mention the weather. Just handed over the envelopes and walked away without eye contact. At church, it got louder. The pastor's wife used to save a seat beside her. Now she sat 2 rows up. Rachel found herself alone on a pew during the Sunday service. No shared hymnal. No passing of the plate. During coffee hour, a few women talked in hushed voices over near-empty styrofoam cups. One of them looked up, then leaned to whisper something. Another nodded. The judgment wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. Because everyone knew Frank. He wasn't flashy. Didn't post his life online. But he built porches for half the neighborhood, fixed Mrs. Kramer's basement steps for free, and never missed a PDA meeting, even when Jenna was just in the chorus. He never boasted. Never asked for thanks. And now, he was gone. Not dead. Not even angry. Just erased. And people noticed. The whispers started small. "I heard she moved in with her real dad. Didn't Frank raise her since she was a kid? And now she's asking him for money again?" Typical. Rachel tried to push back once, over coffee with 2 old friends, Gloria and Diane. She made some comment about Frank's ego, about how men just vanish when they don't get their way. Gloria stirred her tea, then said, flat as concrete, "Frank fixed my fence when Gary threw his back out. In January." Rachel didn't finish her muffin. Diane just shook her head and said, "Some men don't vanish, Ratch. They just stop showing up for the wrong people." By the end of the week, Rachel noticed the kids across the street had stopped waving. The same kids Frank used to teach how to whittle with his pocket knife. And she realized Frank hadn't just raised Jenna. He'd raised trust. Community. Quiet goodwill in a world full of people too busy to notice the steady hands holding it all together. And now that he was gone, they noticed. Rachel's voice cracked halfway through the first message. "You raised her. You loved her. We need your help, Frank. Please." The message had no edges, just pleading. No anger left. No accusations. She sounded like a woman standing on a frozen lake, hearing the first splinters crack beneath her boots. He didn't listen twice. He poured his coffee, watched steam roll up the cracked window of the cabin, and let the silence refill the room. 2 hours later, another voicemail landed. "She's hurting, Frank. Really hurting. She doesn't sleep. She barely eats. She's scared, and Greg's not showing up. You were always the one who showed up. Please, don't do this. Don't let her drown." Frank turned the volume down. Listened once, then opened the weather app on his phone. Cold front coming in. Should chop wood before sundown. The phone buzzed again, not a call this time. A message. From Jenna. Simple. "Dad, I'm sorry. Please, just say something." He read it. Let it sit there like a lit match on dry grass. It took him a full minute to breathe again. Not because he didn't care, but because he did. Too much. She'd called him Dad. Not Frank. Not, "Hey." Not, "Can we talk?" Just Dad. And for a moment, just a flicker, his hand hovered above the screen. He thought about replying. Not with anger. Not with anything sharp. Just something real. A sentence, maybe. A word. Anything. But the weight of the last year, the last month, the echo of all the things she didn't say back when it counted, pressed against his chest like wet cement. Where had this girl been when he carried her fridge up those stairs? Where had this voice been when she chose someone else over the man who never missed a parent-teacher conference? Where was this apology when he signed off from her life like a man turning in a work badge he'd worn with pride? No, it was too late. So Frank did the only thing he had left. He tapped delete. No reply. No dots. No typing. Just silence, once again, taking its seat beside him like an old friend who didn't need to talk. He set the phone down, stepped outside, and split a fresh log clean through the middle with a single swing. In a dorm 2 states away, Jenna stared at her screen for hours. No response. She checked her signal, refreshed the app, waited, hoped. Nothing. She whispered the word please to an empty room, then turned the phone face down on her nightstand. And just like that, hope quietly, without fanfare, folded in on itself and died. By October, Jenna was working 20 hours a week folding sweaters at a campus clothing store called Lake Threads, where the AC always ran too cold and the manager spoke to everyone like a kindergarten teacher who hated children. She took the job because she had no choice. Meal card balance ran dry the second week of the month. The bursar let her stay enrolled, for now, but the late fees were climbing like ivy, slowly wrapping around her neck. She sold the futon Greg said he'd help her buy, but never did. Canceled Spotify. Ate cereal for dinner. One night, she cried in the walk-in stockroom between shifts, pressing her forehead to a box of knockoff jeans while the fluorescent lights above flickered like they were mocking her. Greg? He hadn't texted in over 2 weeks. His last message read, "Hang in there, sweetie. I'll send something soon." That was 19 days ago. She stopped checking. Rachel, too, was unraveling in her own quiet ways. Working weekends at a downtown diner she used to make fun of, silver-haired waitresses with tired smiles and cracked voices who'd been there since Reagan. Rachel wore a name tag now, poured bottomless coffee into chipped mugs for men who didn't tip. She came home smelling like old bacon and grease she couldn't wash off her hands. Every once in a while, she'd scroll to Frank's name in her phone. Never called. Never dared. Meanwhile, up north, Frank had just finished sanding the edges of a cedar birdhouse. He painted it blue, Jenna's favorite color once, when she was 9 and obsessed with sky tones and glitter crayons. He didn't name it, just hung it up beside the cabin and watched as a chickadee poked its head inside. The phone sat beside his mug of black coffee, screen dark, forever on silent. He didn't check it anymore. Didn't need to. One Thursday, after an early class, Jenna sat outside the student center with a lukewarm paper cup of instant cocoa she'd snagged from the break room. Her hair tied back in a low bun, wrinkles forming beneath her eyes, stress lines she never used to have. Her hoodie sagged over her frame like it belonged to someone bigger, someone less brittle. A freshman sat beside her. Didn't know her story. Just trying to make conversation. "You ever talk to the guy who raised you?" the kid asked. "The carpenter dude?" Jenna looked up, blinking like she'd been underwater. Then, with the smallest shake of her head, she said, voice soft and final, "No, he's gone. Not angry. Not bitter. Just gone." The freshman didn't ask again. Jenna took a sip of her cocoa, watched steam rise into the autumn air. A leaf skittered across the pavement in the wind. And that was it. Not a scream. Not a reunion. Just a girl who chose wrong. A mother who backed the wrong man. And a man who walked away without slamming a door because some exits echo louder when left open. In the woods, Frank lit a fire and watched it crackle. The wind carried smoke across the lake. And the silence, for once, felt right. Her bra was on the floor, right next to the family photo we took last Thanksgiving. Kayla had made everyone wear those dumb matching sweaters. Melissa's laugh, that same high-pitched trill she used when she'd fake amusement at my jokes in front of friends, drifted from the bedroom like it belonged to someone else. I wasn't supposed to be home until Friday night, but a canceled meeting and a headache that wouldn't quit had me on an earlier flight. I walked in through the side door. No shoes in the entryway. No sounds from the kitchen. No smell of dinner. Just a strange, sterile silence. Then I heard it. A low chuckle. A man's voice. Her voice. I took the stairs like I was heading toward a funeral I'd already memorized the eulogy for. The door wasn't even shut all the way. There they were. Victor, her stepbrother, shirtless, reclining like he owned the damn mattress I paid for. Melissa, in that threadbare college t-shirt she never let me throw out, curled into him like she was in a movie and someone had just called action. Her hand on his chest, his lips near her ear. They saw me and didn't move. No flinch, no panic, just acknowledgement. Like this was inevitable. She looked me dead in the eyes, tucked her hair behind her ear, and said like she was explaining the weather, "Don't overreact. It's not blood, and it's real." I wish I could say I exploded, that I punched a wall or shouted something poetic and righteous. But nothing. My body felt like concrete. My mouth. Dry. Numb. That's when Kayla stepped out of her room, eyes wide, but not in horror. No. Curiosity. Mild guilt, maybe. But more like she'd just walked into a tense scene in a soap opera and wanted to watch it play out. She looked at me, tilted her head, and whispered, like she pitied me, "It's true love, Dad. You don't understand her like he does." That's when I realized it wasn't just betrayal. It was indoctrination. I walked past them, down the stairs, poured myself 2 fingers of the bourbon I'd been saving for our anniversary. 15 years, supposed to be next month. No ice, just the sharp bite. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the edge where Melissa once clipped coupons with Kayla after school. And I said nothing, because I already knew. This wasn't a breakdown. It was a plan. The couch in my office still had that ridiculous plaid blanket Kayla gave me for Father's Day 2 years ago, cheap fleece, printed with some joke about world's grumpiest boss. I didn't even take my shoes off. Just sat there, bourbon still warming my chest, the city lights painting slow-moving shadows across my walls. I wasn't running. I wasn't shocked. I was awake for the first damn time in years. I opened the bottom drawer of the locked cabinet under my desk. The folder was there. Blue. Unmarked. Taped shut on one side like I was afraid it might escape. Melissa never knew about it. Inside, the prenuptial agreement we drafted but never signed because she said it killed the romance. I had kept it anyway, revised it quietly over the years. Tucked next to it, a set of financial transfer blueprints written out in my lawyer's cryptic shorthand. Accounts I'd set up in Nevada and Georgia. Business assets structured like a Russian nesting doll, impossible to unpack without a map. And under that emails, printed and dated, Melissa to Victor. For years ago. Subject lines like, "He won't suspect a thing. Kayla's starting to ask questions. You're the only one who sees me." The timestamps told me everything I needed. This wasn't a midlife crisis or some sudden whirlwind of attraction. They'd been laying the groundwork for years. Mocking me. Coordinating. Planning. They were grooming our daughter to see me as the villain. So when the betrayal hit, she'd already picked a side. I leaned back, exhaled slowly, and flipped through the documents. There it was, their blueprint to gut me. But I had one of my own. More subtle. Sharper. Legal. It wasn't rage that filled me. It was precision. I turned to the last page. A sticky note I'd written to myself nearly 5 years ago, after Melissa's second book club weekend went a little too quiet. When the time comes, move the LLC. Trust the blueprint. Don't warn her. The time had come. The last time I saw Carl, Melissa's father, he was drunk at our wedding, arguing with the DJ over a Sinatra song no one asked for. That was 15 years ago. He didn't come around after that. Not for holidays. Not when Kayla was born. Melissa always said he was toxic, manipulative, a narcissist with a god complex. Funny how those words sound familiar now. I drove 2 hours out past the edge of the city to a battered duplex with a cracked driveway and a rusted mailbox that still said the Flynn's in flaking white letters. It smelled like burnt coffee and dust inside. Carl opened the door wearing socks with holes in them and a navy sweatshirt so faded the anchor looked like it was dissolving. He squinted like I was a ghost. Well, I'll be damned. The husband. I need 15 minutes, I said. He grunted, stepped aside, and motioned toward the living room. We sat surrounded by old fishing magazines, untouched mail, and a single photo of Melissa at age 10 with braces and an ice cream cone. I told him everything. The bourbon glass, the hallway, Victor. The emails. He listened in total silence, except for the occasional sip from his chipped mug. Then he leaned back and exhaled through his nose, long and bitter. She always had a talent, he muttered. Knew how to cry just enough to get what she wanted, but not so much you doubt her strength. Victor's not the first idiot who thought he was different. Hell, she once convinced a guidance counselor to expel another girl for cheating. Melissa did. I blinked. Victor's a dog she taught to bark when she snaps her fingers, he said, then looked at me, really looked. But you? You're not barking. Not crying either. That scares her. She's not scared yet. No, he nodded slowly. But she will be. I started to stand, but he put a hand on my wrist, dry and bony. You're not just leaving her. You're gonna leave her empty. Aren't you? I didn't answer. He smiled. A slow, cracked thing that didn't reach his eyes. She won't see it coming. She thinks you're broken. But I can see it. Right there. He pointed to my chest. That's not heartbreak. That's calculation. You're the one who'll leave her with nothing. I see it in your eyes. I drove home in silence, his words rattling in the back seat with me like ghosts. She built a house of matches and lit a candle. She just didn't know I was the wind. She was in the kitchen when I got back, barefoot, stirring her chamomile tea like it was just another Tuesday. The same mug with the chipped handle I fixed with superglue last year, the one she once called sentimental. She wore the cardigan I bought her on our 10th anniversary. That cardigan had seen more fake apologies than the Vatican. When she saw me, her shoulders dipped, just enough to read as relieved, but her eyes flicked fast, scanning, calculating. We need to talk, she said softly, like she was the injured party. This doesn't have to be ugly. I think we can be civil. For Kayla. I said nothing. She continued, voice level, like a therapist in a mediation room. You keep the business. I'll take the house. And the cars, we can split. It's not about winning, Graham. It's about moving on. I sipped my water. Nodded once. Sure, I said. I'll make it easy. And there it was. That flash of a smile. Not full. Just a ghost of satisfaction in the corners of her mouth. She thought it was surrender. Compliance. That I was still in shock and ready to roll over for a clean exit. She didn't see what I had just slid under my coat on the way out of the office that morning, our master business license. She didn't notice the gaps in the file drawers. The folders missing. The 2 bank keys I had clipped off the safe. She didn't see my second phone, the one she'd laughed about once. Why would you need a backup? Are you James Bond? The one I used to confirm my appointment with the second lawyer that week. Melissa mistook silence for defeat. That was her second mistake. The first was thinking I ever stopped watching. She asked if I'd like to go over the asset list next week with a mediator. Sure, I said. Let me handle the paperwork. She nodded. Grateful. Thought I was still clinging to dignity. But I already knew, by the time we sat across from each other at that mediation table, every piece she thought she was taking would already belong to someone else. She just hadn't read the fine print yet. I handed her the envelope in the living room. It was thick, intimidating, but bound with a gold ribbon. The same ribbon she used to wrap my Father's Day gifts when Kayla was little. A nice touch, I thought. Sentimental. Almost romantic. Melissa sat on the edge of the couch, Victor hovering behind her like some smug coat rack in my old flannel. Kayla leaned against the armrest, arms crossed, pretending to be neutral, but her eyes flicked with curiosity like a kid watching her parents negotiate bedtime. I kept my voice low. No theatrics. No bitterness. I'm done, I said. I'm giving you what you want. Everything. Melissa blinked. Once. Twice. Then her eyes lit up like she'd just won a game she didn't know had rules. Really? She said, fingers already on the flap. Kayla stepped forward and wrapped her arms around her mother. See? He gets it now. He's letting go. It's better this way, Dad. Victor didn't speak. Just smirked, the corner of his mouth twitching like he was trying not to laugh. He tapped a pen against the arm of the chair. Melissa pulled the documents out, skimmed the first page, saw her name printed in bold, the house address, the car titles, even the damn garden furniture listed in detail. She didn't read the next 27 pages. Neither did Victor. They signed fast. Initials here. Sign there. Date at the bottom. No questions about Section 7, mutual assumption of risk. No pause at Clause 12, voluntary relinquishment of business equity. Not even a blink at Appendix C, tax liability acknowledgement. Because I looked defeated, the polite, broken version of the man they thought they'd destroyed. I even added a small cipher performance. Melissa handed the papers back like she was patting a loyal dog on the head. "You'll feel better soon," she said softly. I nodded. "I already do." Kayla smiled at me, like I had just passed a maturity test. "Thank you, Dad. Seriously, this means a lot." Victor held the door for me on my way out. "You're doing the right thing," he said, smug as hell. I stopped at the threshold, looked at the three of them standing there like the closing scene of a Hallmark movie. I nodded slowly. "I know." I walked out and left them holding the detonator they just pulled the pin on. They just hadn't noticed it ticking yet. By the time they finished celebrating their win, with wine in my backyard and a passive-aggressive selfie captioned, "Fresh starts cherry blossom," the paperwork had already cleared with the registrar. Their champagne toast was basically toasting a ticking liability bomb. Melissa got the house, yes, and the vintage dining table, the antique piano from my mother's estate, the damn espresso machine she swore she hated but now posed with on Instagram like she was living her best life. She got both car leases, including the one for the Tesla she never drove because it makes my hair smell like electricity. What she didn't get: the hardware chain, the franchise rights, the 4 commercial properties attached to it, and especially not the controlling shares. Because 2 weeks earlier, the company, technically listed as Halpern Retail Group, LLC, was quietly dissolved and restructured into a new holding company. On paper, it looked like a lateral move. In practice, it was a complete reset. The new owner? Marcia Halpern, my older sister, former IRS auditor, divorced twice, allergic to nonsense, and as her nickname from her old colleagues went, the compliance guillotine. Melissa had met her maybe twice. Both times she made passive comments about Marcia's wardrobe, said she dressed like an insurance agent from hell. She never bothered learning what she actually did. So when Melissa signed the packet I gave her, grinning at her half of everything, she unknowingly acknowledged she no longer had any claim to the restructured business. She assumed liability for any debts tied to the previous LLC. She waived her right to contest asset restructuring retroactively. The cherry on top? The house she now owned, along with the property tax liability, the deferred renovation costs, and the unpaid second mortgage she never noticed I refinanced into her name last fall, was now legally hers in full. Victor kept flexing in my bathrobe like he was the new king of the castle. Let him. Kings fall hardest when they think the throne is real. And Melissa? She was now the proud owner of a beautifully staged time bomb. She just hadn't heard it ticking yet. Victor strutted through that house like he'd inherited a kingdom, not stolen a motel. My robe, gray terry cloth, monogrammed with my initials, hung off his lanky frame like a costume 2 sizes too big. He tried grilling out back the first night. Burned the steaks. Claimed the propane tank was faulty. The man didn't know how to use tongs without looking like he was defusing a bomb. He parked my car crooked in the driveway like a teenager showing off. He sat in my recliner like it was a throne. He even tried to bond with Kayla, offering to take her out for sushi. She passed. Smart girl, still brainwashed, but not suicidal. Then Melissa posted the photo. A selfie, all filtered and soft-lit, with Victor behind her kissing her temple. Her caption, "Real love finds a way, Dizzy." I laughed harder than I had in years. But the house they posed in had officially transferred to her name 3 days earlier. And with that came everything they didn't notice in the fine print, including the unpaid property taxes from the last 2 years, backdated penalties, and a lovely little clause triggered by any transfer of ownership without prior county notification, which I, of course, had quietly orchestrated to hit after the paperwork cleared. On Thursday morning, while Victor was making coffee with my beans and leaving his socks on my ottoman, a manila envelope landed on their doorstep. Court documents. Lawsuit. County versus Melissa Halpern. Amount due, $42,700. Due immediately, or lien enforcement begins. Victor opened it while eating cereal. I imagine the milk started tasting sour. "What the hell is this?" he shouted, paper in hand, waving it like it was a prank. Melissa didn't even flinch. She actually said, "I don't know. I didn't really read anything Graham gave me." Victor's face twisted. "You didn't read it?" She sipped her coffee. It felt clean, like closure. He stormed off down the hall, probably to scream into the closet. She just stared out the window, like maybe if she blinked hard enough, the debt would vanish. And me? I was at my office, sipping tea. Because bourbon's for war. But tea is for watching your enemies realize they've built their empire on sand. She texted me a few days after the lawsuit hit. Just 5 words. Can we please just talk? No emojis. No sarcasm. Just restraint. We met at a diner halfway between her campus and my office. Same one I used to take her to after soccer games when she was 12. She ordered the same thing she always did back then, grilled cheese, extra pickles. I didn't comment. She looked thinner. Not physically, emotionally. Like someone who was finally beginning to understand the weight of things. She started. Hands wrapped tight around her water glass. I want to understand your side. I mean, I know Mom's version. And Victor's. But it feels like something's missing. I didn't answer. I just reached into my bag and pulled out a worn black folder. No label. Just a clip keeping everything tight. I slid it across the table. She opened it slowly, like it might explode. The first page, an email from Melissa to Victor. Dated 2 years ago. Subject line. Let's start phasing him out. The body? A charming collection of barbs about my predictability, bland kindness, and how he wouldn't see it coming if we painted it on the walls. Next, a series of money transfers. Small amounts. Always just under $10,000. Just enough to not flag immediate questions. All routed to an account under Victor's name from one of the business credit lines Melissa had access to before she disconnected from it all. And then the plan. Typed. Organized. Bullet pointed. Stage tension. Shift Kayla emotionally toward Mom's side. Begin separation of Graham from board decisions. Let him feel like he's choosing isolation. Kayla stopped flipping. Her eyes welled. Hands trembling slightly. She stared at the final email, where Melissa called me a harmless fool who thinks loyalty earns love. Kayla whispered, "He said you were weak." I stared at her, then stood. "You all did." I slid the folder back toward her side of the table. Left it there. She tried to say something else, some soft echo of remorse, but I was already pulling on my coat. Meeting's over. I walked out into the cold, felt the wind slice across my face, and welcomed it. That folder had been burning a hole in my drawer for years. She finally saw the match. Melissa always said the family name meant something. That Halpern hardware sounded old school, trustworthy, American. She loved the sound of it, especially when she could use it to get discounts, upgrades, or priority service from vendors who thought we were some kind of hometown dynasty. But that name? That brand? It was never hers. 2 days after the documents cleared, I filed the rebrand paperwork. Halpern Hardware became Granite and Pine. New logo, new colors, new marketing campaign built around heritage craftsmanship, environmental sustainability, and a very public founder's retirement. I made a short farewell video. Just me in the shop, sunlight catching the dust on the workbench. I kept it simple. After 30 years serving this community, I'm stepping back. Thank you for trusting me, for building with me, for letting me be part of your homes. Uploaded it on a Thursday. By Monday, it had 800,000 views. Local press picked it up, said it was the end of an era. Customers flooded the comments with memories of buying their first toolkits from me, bringing their kids in for school projects, fixing broken cabinet hinges with my advice. It hit people. What they didn't know, but Melissa soon would, was that the name Granite and Pine had already been trademarked 6 months earlier. Websites ready. Branding locked in. Launch strategy executed like clockwork. The Halpern name was retired. And with it, any residual profit she thought she'd leech off. She got hate mail after that. Not just online trolling, actual letters. Handwritten. From old customers. Shame on you. Your husband was a good man. You don't deserve his legacy. Victor, meanwhile, found out that the side job he had teaching weekend finance workshops at a private community college had a morality clause. A quiet board member flagged the viral drama. He was dropped from the roster pending investigation. And Kayla? She got an email from the trust fund administrator. A line buried near the bottom. Support is void if the beneficiary enables, conceals, or participates in fraud or abuse against the grantor. Attached to it? A clip. Her own voice on video, weeks before the collapse. Dad's too soft to fight back. He'll sign anything. Mom's already got it figured out. She didn't know the security cameras in the house were still running. Not cloud-based. Local server. She never asked. When she called me sobbing, I didn't pick up. The trust was locked. Tuition unpaid. And I was already drafting my next announcement. Because the business survived. But they didn't. Melissa emailed me through her lawyer first. The subject line was laughable. Path to peace and mutual healing. Attached was a half-hearted proposal. She'd keep the house and drop any future claims if I publicly declared the situation a misunderstanding and refrained from further legal action. I didn't reply. 2 days later, Victor sent a message directly, burner number. I could tell. Look, man, things got out of hand. Nobody meant for it to go like this. Let's just move on. I saved the message. Flagged it. Forwarded it to my attorney. Then Kayla showed up in person. Campus sweatshirt. Puffy eyes. No eyeliner. Said she missed when things were simple. Said she'd made a mistake. Said she was scared. I didn't know how deep it went, Dad. I thought you were okay. I thought you'd bounce back. I looked at her like a stranger. Then I handed her an envelope. It wasn't money. Just a copy of the court filing. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Malicious interference with business operations. Civil conspiracy. All backed by documentation. Emails. Video. Financial forensics. Witnesses. Even Carl, Melissa's own father, agreed to submit a sworn statement. The court accepted the motion. Set a date. And suddenly, all those smug smiles vanished. Melissa was the first to crack. I saw her in the hallway outside the courtroom, heels off, mascara running, breath hitching like she'd sprinted the whole length of her regret. She was on the phone, begging someone, I assume Victor, to just show up and fix this. He didn't. In fact, he tried to file for a temporary restraining order against me, claiming I was emotionally destabilizing him with my silence. The judge laughed. Dismissed it on the spot. Victor shouted at my back as I walked past. He's ruining us. Melissa leaned against the wall like it was the only thing holding her up. Kayla sat on a bench nearby, chewing her nails, looking at me like she wanted me to throw her a lifeline. I didn't blink. I walked into that courtroom and handed the judge the final stack of receipts. Because sometimes, the only way to kill a hydra is with documentation, cold, legal, bulletproof. And I was just getting warmed up. It was mediation, but you'd think it was the gallows the way Melissa clutched her pen like it might save her life. The room smelled like lemon disinfectant and dread. Her lawyer, a preppy, overconfident guy named Jared, showed up in a tailored gray suit with an attitude that said we've got this wrapped. Victor was late. Again. Kayla sat in the corner, arms folded, earbuds in, pretending not to exist. I brought 2 things, my attorney and a banker's box full of everything they missed. When Jared started flipping through my filings, every receipt, message, timestamp transfer, camera screenshot, and notarized affidavit, I watched his mouth slowly collapse into a straight line. Page by page, his posture went from cocky to corpse. Then he hit page 82. His hand froze. Melissa leaned in. What? What is it? Jared turned to her slowly, voice barely above a whisper. You signed a release of claim. Graham offered a voluntary surrender form disguised as a transfer. It's ironclad. Melissa blinked. What does that mean? It means, he said, swallowing. You gave up your rights to contest anything post-transfer. You legally surrendered. For the first time since this entire circus began, Melissa looked small. Her voice cracked when she said, He tricked us. I didn't even flinch. You tricked yourselves, I said. Calm, crisp, surgical. You wanted easy. You wanted clean. You wanted to win without reading the rules. So I gave you what you asked for. She stood up so fast the chair tipped. You ruined everything we built. No, I said. I dismantled what you stole. There's a difference. Kayla stood too, her earbuds dangling, face flushed with fury. You could have just let it go. You didn't have to destroy us. I turned slowly to her. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped holding it up. She screamed. Raw. Guttural. Like something inside her finally cracked open. Melissa backed against the wall. Jared stepped away like she might swing. And I straightened my sleeves, collected my papers, let them soak in it. Because this wasn't vengeance. It was arithmetic. Everything they took from me, I just took back. With interest. The courtroom was fluorescent silence when the judge finally spoke. Not dramatic, just decisive. Motion granted. The respondent holds no claim to assets transferred under the signed waiver. Damages stand. Case closed. The sound of Melissa's breath catching was louder than the gavel. Victor stood up before the judge even left the bench, muttered something like, "I'm done with this psycho," and bolted out the side door like a man trying to outrun consequences. He didn't look back. Not at Melissa. Not at Kayla. Melissa? She just stood there, clutching her purse like a life raft, eyes darting, red-rimmed, looking for some kind of loophole. In me, in the judge, in reality. There wasn't one. Kayla didn't say a word. Didn't follow her mother out. Didn't follow Victor either. She just sat there, frozen, maybe wondering when the applause would start. Maybe wondering who she was now that the illusion had shattered. And me? I left through the front, slow and deliberate. No victory lap. No smirk. Just silence. That afternoon, I went to my usual cafe. The one with the chipped mugs and the crooked window seat. Ordered black coffee. No cream. No sugar. Just clean bitterness, like a good ending. The barista handed me a small white envelope. Said, "Guy in a tan coat dropped this off this morning. Said it was for you." Inside was a card. Heavy stock. My sister Marcia's handwriting. Short. Surgical. "You made it out clean." They only screamed once they realized. "You never yelled." I looked out the window. A kid was feeding pigeons. A couple argued half-heartedly near the parking meter. Nothing in the world changed. And yet, everything had. I folded the note, slipped it into my pocket, let the warmth of the mug seep into my palms. The war was over, and I never raised my voice once. The night my wife left me, the neighbor's dog wouldn't shut up. It howled for hours, sharp and shrill like it knew something I didn't. I'd just gotten home from a 12-hour shift, kicked off my steel-toed boots, and was halfway through reheating some old chili when it started. At first, I thought someone was creeping around the back alley. I checked, nothing. So I locked up, cracked a beer, and collapsed on the couch like usual, mind already drifting into static. Then my phone vibrated once on the armrest. I didn't even look right away. I was half asleep, shoes still on, TV muttering in the background. Just another notification. But that single buzz? That was the moment the floor fell out from under my life. I finally glanced at the screen. Madison. No, hey babe. No emojis. Just one brutal message, one line of digital venom. Have fun being broke. I'm leaving with him. My heart didn't race. It stopped. For a full 10 seconds, the air felt too thick to breathe. I just stared, rereading it like the words might rearrange themselves if I blinked hard enough. They didn't. I sat upright, phone clutched in both hands. I thought maybe it was a prank, a sick joke from her friends. She had some that pushed boundaries. But then I noticed her contact photo gone, replaced with the gray circle. She blocked me right after sending it. She sent that message and vanished. Like flipping off the lights after burning the house down. I jumped up, grabbed my keys, and ran to the driveway. Her car was gone. Not just gone, emptied. The back seat where she kept her gym bag, the stupid fake succulent on her dash, her dangling live laugh love keychain, all of it gone. I ran back inside, opened the closet. Half. Empty. Not a mess. Not a scramble. Every hanger she used, empty, aligned, neat. She'd packed. This wasn't impulsive. This was calculated. I stood there in the closet doorway with my mouth open, breathing through my teeth. My reflection in the mirror looked pale, like someone else's face. My hands started to shake, and I clenched them so hard my nails dug into my palm. I didn't even know who he was. Him. The smug ghost in her message. My mind started throwing names at the wall. Her co-worker from the clinic, that guy she ran into from college, her yoga instructor, the one with the too slick smile and that pretentious man bun. But there was no proof. Just a mess of gut feelings and broken memories. What killed me most in that moment wasn't the betrayal. It was the efficiency. She'd been planning this. Not for a day or two. Not for a week. Weeks. Maybe months. The signs came rushing back like a tidal wave I'd ignored. The sudden late nights, the random errands, the locked phone, her newfound obsession with self-care. She'd even started calling me by my name less, like I was fading. God, she even changed her shampoo recently. Citrus. She hated citrus. Except he must have liked it. I dropped to the bed. The room felt alien. Her scent was still in the pillows. Her book, Where the Crawdads Sing, sat half-read on the nightstand like nothing had changed. But everything had. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She deserves better. Don't contact her. No name. Just that smug, boiling sentence. I nearly threw the phone across the room, but stopped. Instead, I sat there, frozen. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even reply. Because something inside me started shifting. Slow, quiet. Not grief. Not rage. Stillness. The kind of stillness you feel before a storm breaks. The world thought I'd fall apart. But what none of them realized, not her, not him, not anyone, was that I've been underestimated my entire damn life. And they had just given me a reason to wake the hell up. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat there in the dark, watching the shadows creep across the wall, counting every lie she ever told me. I remembered her saying she wasn't ready for kids yet, while scrolling her phone under the covers. I remembered the fake tears she cried when she said she'd never leave me, even if I lost my job. I remembered the way she pulled her hand away when I tried to touch her last week, saying she was just tired. And I remembered how she promised she'd always be honest with me. Liar. They think I'm going to lie down and take it. But they don't know what I'm capable of when I've got nothing left to lose. Let her run. Let him smile. They just lit a fuse under the wrong man. I didn't go to work the next day. I didn't even call in. My phone had been silent all night. No apologies, no follow-up, not even a courtesy call from her parents pretending to care. Just that final message, like a bullet lodged under my ribs, and the smug stranger's follow-up, as if I were nothing more than an obstacle they'd just cleared from their path. By sunrise, I was no longer angry. That would have been too easy. I was awake. And for the first time in a long time, I was seeing everything with brutal, blinding clarity. Her closet space. Her drawer in the bathroom. Her perfume bottle, now missing. Her favorite mug gone from the cabinet. All gone. But the thing that got me, what made my fingers go numb, was the USB drive. It was right where she thought I'd never look. In the back of the laundry closet, inside an old tea tin we used to keep loose change in. I didn't find it because I was searching. I found it because my hand brushed it by accident when I went looking for trash bags. That tiny, silver drive rattled in the tin like a tooth in a skull. She'd forgotten it. Or maybe she hadn't. Maybe she thought I'd never notice. I plugged it into my laptop, fingers trembling, heart thudding in my ears. I expected financial records, maybe her resume, something boring. But it wasn't boring. Not even close. There were videos, photos, documents, folders labeled. Rental agreement, Miami. Application, New York Medical Fellowship. Photos private. I clicked, and my world didn't shatter. It recalibrated. The first image was of Madison, my wife, on a balcony I didn't recognize, wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, her hair tied up the way she used to when we first met. She was smiling at him. A tall guy in a fitted shirt with that greasy finance bro confidence, holding a glass of wine like he owned her. They looked cozy. Too cozy. Her hand on his thigh. His lips at her ear. Each photo after that hit like another nail in my chest. Different locations. Different nights. Same two people. There was one video I couldn't stop replaying. Madison, laughing in bed, holding the phone too close to her face, whispering, "I can't wait until I don't have to sneak around anymore." He's so clueless, babe. I paused it right there. She was talking about me. My hands didn't shake anymore. I stared at that frozen frame of her smirking like a queen over her fool. Clueless? Maybe. But no longer. That day, I didn't cry. I didn't call my friends. I didn't drown myself in alcohol or binge Netflix to numb the pain. I opened a new document on my laptop and titled it, Her Collapse Timeline. Then I made a list. Every lie, every shift in behavior, every suspicious moment I'd brushed off. I started building a blueprint, not just of her betrayal, but of her downfall. Because here's what Madison didn't know when she slithered out of our house and into his arms. I spent the last 10 years building her dreams. I handled the finances. I paid her tuition when she went back to school. I co-signed the lease on her business space. I put my name on everything, including the things she didn't think I remembered. I knew where the bodies were buried, and now I had the time and the motive to start digging. So while she was off sipping cocktails with Captain Slickhair and basking in her new fantasy life, I was here, preparing. No drama, no outbursts, no begging, just the quiet, meticulous hum of revenge being born. The kind that doesn't explode, the kind that waits, that breathes, that grows in silence. She thought she left me in ruins. She had no idea. She just handed me the blueprint to destroy her life with her own fingerprints. By the third day, I knew what I had to do. Not emotionally, logically, coldly, like I was running a business. Like she was just another line item that had bled too much from the budget. See, the thing about betrayal is that it doesn't kill you fast. It poisons you slow, seeps into your gut, your bones, your thoughts. And if you let it, it becomes your identity. But I wasn't going to be the man who got left. No, I was going to be the man who disappeared from the wreckage before the flames even reached him, and made sure the arsonist didn't realize until she was already surrounded by ash. Madison had underestimated me in every possible way. She thought I didn't notice that she stopped wearing her ring 3 months ago. She thought I wouldn't care that she suddenly got laser-focused on her career. She thought I didn't catch the Uber receipts tucked behind our visa statements. She thought I was dumb enough to let her leave with a smug text and everything I built. She was wrong. Because 3 years ago, when she got cold feet about med school, I set up all the LLCs, the paperwork, the tax accounts, everything in my name. Every investment I made, every joint account we opened, every legal string tied to our life, I quietly kept control. She never noticed. She was too busy finding herself. And now she was going to find out who I really was. That morning, I didn't shower. I didn't eat. I pulled up all our accounts and started quietly bleeding them dry. Not illegally, just smart. The personal savings? Transferred into a trust under my name. The joint credit cards? Paid off, closed. The line of credit she used for her clinic upgrades? I froze it. And the house? That was the real twist. Because 6 months ago, she wanted to refinance. She didn't want to use a broker. She wanted freedom. I offered to handle it. She agreed, signed the docs without reading. She thought both our names were still on the title. They weren't. Only mine. So when I called the real estate attorney I'd worked with for years and asked how long it would take to list and sell a home with an absentee spouse who had no legal claim, he told me, "We can start tomorrow." Perfect. I called a moving company, gave them one instruction: pack up the things from the right side of the closet and the bottom bathroom drawer. Leave the rest. They came by that afternoon. Quiet. Efficient. In and out in under an hour. I rented a small condo on the opposite side of town under a different last name. Paid in full for 6 months in advance. Prepaid utilities. No forwarding address. By sundown, the house looked the same from the outside, but it wasn't mine anymore. Not in spirit. And soon, it wouldn't be mine legally either. But I wasn't just leaving. No, that would be too merciful. I wanted Madison to walk back in and find emptiness. I wanted her to bring him into what she thought was our home and realize she'd been standing in my shadow the whole time. So I left a few things behind. One framed photo, her graduation. My hand on her back. The same day, she later told me she felt sick and skipped the celebration dinner. One note, folded, resting on the kitchen counter, scrawled in ink. Enjoy your new life. I already am. I stared at those words for a long time before I walked out. It wasn't satisfaction. Not yet. It was something sharper, quieter, like holding your breath underwater, just before breaking the surface. As I locked the front door for the last time, I took one look back. The house was hollow. Still, like a stage set waiting for the final scene to begin. I left the porch light on. Let her think someone was still home. Let her open the door thinking she won. Let her walk straight into silence. Because that silence? That was me. And I was just getting started. She came back on a Thursday. I knew it because I watched it happen from across the street, behind tinted windows, in a borrowed car that didn't trace back to me. It was just past 6 p.m. Her silver crossover slowed at the curb like nothing had changed, as if she were returning from yoga or some coffee run with her girlfriends. I watched her get out, her phone in one hand, some boutique shopping bag in the other, like she hadn't just evaporated from our life 5 days ago. She was alone. No him in sight. That told me everything I needed to know. She still thought she was in control. Madison walked up the steps, the same way she had for years, shoulders high, perfect posture, that fake poise she wore like perfume. Her key slipped into the lock. I saw the moment her body froze. Click. Nothing. She tried again. Jiggle. Push. Still locked. I had changed the locks 2 days ago. Not illegally, legally. She abandoned residence. I had documents filed before she even finished her little escape act. The real estate attorney had everything timestamped. The moment she texted me, "I'm leaving," she gave up claim. I watched her step back, confused, lips moving, maybe cursing. She fumbled for her phone and called someone, probably me. My old number. The one now disconnected. She dialed again. No luck. She stood there for 5, maybe 10 minutes, pacing like a cat locked out in the rain. She knocked. Once. Twice. She didn't look desperate. Just impatient. Entitled. She opened her purse, pulled something out, and began typing furiously. An email. A threat. It hit my inbox 2 minutes later. Subject: You changed the locks? WDF is wrong with you? This is my house too. I'm calling a lawyer. You better not touch my stuff. I'll be back tomorrow, and it better be fixed. You're acting insane. No greeting. No apology. No explanation. Not even the guts to ask where I went. Just entitlement. I didn't reply. Instead, I triggered the auto-response I'd set up the day I moved out. This email is no longer monitored. All communications must go through legal counsel. Have a good day. Simple. Sharp. Final. She didn't respond after that, but I saw her try the back door. It was bolted too. She peeked through the windows, her face morphing from smug to strained to slightly panicked. Good. Let that unease creep in. She stood there in her little overpriced heels, looking at the skeleton of a life she thought she still owned, and for once, she had no idea what came next. She finally walked away, got back in her car, sat there a while, then drove off. But not home, because that house wasn't her home anymore. It was just drywall and echoes. I followed her. Yes, followed. At a distance. I wanted to know where she was staying. Needed to see how far the fantasy had progressed. She pulled up to a swanky little apartment complex on the west side of town. Not her usual vibe. This place screamed midlife crisis bachelor pad. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, I saw him. The other man. He walked out in gym shorts, smug and barefoot, sipping a green smoothie like he was already king of the hill. He kissed her on the cheek like she was some trophy. She laughed too loud, clung to his arm like a teenager. He didn't look special, just confident, arrogant, younger. I sat in that car, watching their little reunion, and something inside me clicked. This wasn't love. This wasn't even lust. This was leverage. She'd upgraded to a shinier model, one she thought had a better engine. She bet everything on him, burned our house down to chase something sleeker, louder. But she never stopped to check the brakes. And I had just pulled the emergency cord. By midnight, I'd already begun the next phase. I pulled her text history off the cloud account she forgot to log out of on the laptop she left behind. Synced her private email, too. And what I found wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. Screenshots. Conversations with her best friend about how I'd never see it coming. Texts to him bragging about how easy it would be to get everything. He's too soft. He won't fight. I'll walk away with the house in cash. Just give it a month. She thought I'd break. She thought wrong. I archived everything. Printed copies. Backups on drives. One mailed to a P.O. box I opened under a fake name. This wasn't emotional anymore. It was war. But I wasn't swinging fists. I was drawing maps. Let her play house with her smoothie clown. Let her wake up to the smell of protein powder and delusion. By the time she realized what I'd taken from her, it would already be gone. She didn't come back Friday or Saturday, but Sunday. Sunday she returned, with him. I saw them before they even turned onto the street. I was parked in the same spot as last time, sipping coffee, sunglasses on, blending into the quiet neighborhood like just another neighbor waiting on his porch. They pulled up in his charcoal gray Mercedes, The kind of car that screams monthly payments bigger than your mortgage. She stepped out first, tight jeans, red lipstick, trying hard to look unbothered. He got out like he owned the place. Spoiler, he didn't. Not even close. They walked up the front steps with that sickening couple energy, his hand at her back, her fake laughter echoing down the street. He had that predator confidence, looking around like this was his turf now. She pulled out her old house key again, tried the lock. Nothing. She tried again. Jiggled. Looked back at him. Her smile cracked for a half second. Just a flash, but I saw it. That flicker of doubt. Then she rang the doorbell. Over and over. I watched from across the road as they stood there for 3 solid minutes, ringing the bell to a house that no longer belonged to her. He was talking now, animated, irritated. She shrugged, pretending it wasn't a big deal. But the tension? It was growing. She pulled out her phone, probably checking for a reply to her last email. Nothing. I had her address blocked on every platform. Then, in a moment of pure stupidity, he kicked the door. Just once. But hard. I smiled. Because the second his foot hit the wood, the motion sensors activated, and the camera I installed 2 days earlier lit up with a soft click. Red light. Recording. I already had the footage sent to cloud storage in real time. Date stamped. Face clear. And just like that, he gave me exactly what I needed. Trespassing. Attempted forced entry. Documented. Stored. Ready for my lawyer. I could already see the judge's face when that footage played. They turned and left after that. She was fuming. He was barking at her like she was a receptionist who messed up his order. So much for that honeymoon phase. But the real prize was what happened 3 hours later. She broke. Madison called from a different number. Blocked ID, but I knew it was her. The message she left on my voicemail wasn't angry. Wasn't dramatic. It was sweet. Hey babe, I don't know what's going on, but I think there's been a misunderstanding. Can we talk? Please? I just want to fix this. I must have listened to that message 10 times, each one more surreal than the last. The tone was familiar, calculated. The same syrupy voice she used the time she crashed my truck and blamed the rain. The same voice she used when she accidentally maxed out our emergency card on designer bags. But this time, the stakes were different. She wanted back in, because she'd finally realized she wasn't in charge. And that hit her harder than any insult ever could. I didn't respond. Not yet. I wanted her to marinate in that uncertainty. Let her squirm. Let her wonder if the backup plan she left me for is already cracking. Let her feel it. Instead, I forwarded the voicemail to my lawyer. Then I checked the final confirmation on the house listing. It had just gone live on the market, clean, beautifully staged, priced to move. But I added a final touch before we closed. I had the locks changed again. And this time, I made sure the key was delivered to my new address, under a different name, in a building she'll never find. That night, I received another message. From a different number again. Just 2 words. Please talk. Not I'm sorry. Not I was wrong. Just desperation, dressed up as civility. I stared at the message for a long time, then powered off the phone and let silence do what words never could. Because Madison wasn't just losing me. She was losing the version of herself she built on top of me. Piece by piece, it was crumbling. And she had no idea how far down it was about to fall. 3 days passed. Then came the knock. It was a soft one. Not urgent. Not angry. The kind of knock a child makes after breaking something and not knowing whether they'll be forgiven. I didn't answer. From the peephole of my new apartment, 3rd floor, nondescript hallway, under a different last name, I watched her shift uncomfortably, clutching her purse like it had answers. Her hair was tied up in a lazy bun, makeup thinner than usual, probably trying to look casual. But her eyes were raw. She looked scared. Not weepy. Not broken. Just lost. Like a tourist who suddenly realized the map she followed was fake. I'd only been here a week. She must have asked someone. Traced something. Dug. Maybe bribed a friend of a friend. Whatever strings she pulled, I let her find me. On purpose. Because Madison needed to see what I looked like when I had nothing to lose. She knocked again. Then, finally, she spoke. Quiet. Tentative. Daniel, I just want to talk. That's all. Please. I didn't move. She stood there for a long time. Just breathing. Then she did something I didn't expect. She sat. Right there. on the hallway floor, back against my door, as if she was waiting for a train or for time to rewind. I heard her sigh, heard her mutter something I couldn't catch. Then her phone buzzed. Once, twice. She didn't answer, just stared at it. Finally, she spoke again. He's not who I thought he was. And there it was. Crack number one. I stepped back from the door and sat on the edge of the kitchen counter, out of view, listening. She stayed there another 20 minutes. Then she left. No drama, no yelling, just silence. But when she was gone, I checked the hallway camera feed. The texts on her screen were visible for 3 seconds. I froze the frame, zoomed in. One of them read, "If you don't have your own place by next week, I'm done." Perfect. That night, I initiated phase 2. I filed the paperwork for our financial audit. Every asset, every account, every business expense she'd made in the last 6 months. Madison never knew that our accountant was a friend of mine from high school, a guy who hated liars. I told him to flag every transaction that looked suspicious. Within hours, I had a list. Spa retreats charged to our joint card, while she was supposedly at medical seminars. Flights to cities I'd never visited, under the guise of training sessions. A payment to a fertility clinic in his name. She was planning a future with him. Secretly, while pretending she wasn't ready for children. I copied everything. Highlighted. Dated. Cross-referenced. My lawyer called the next morning. His voice was amused. "She's cooked, Dan." She left a paper trail wide enough to drive a tank through. He asked if I wanted to freeze her assets. I said not yet. Let her think she still had room to maneuver. Let her try to crawl back before I snapped the trap. That same day, she emailed me again. This time it was long, rambling, full of flowery guilt. I didn't mean for this to happen like this. I was confused. I wasn't happy, and I didn't know how to say it. I thought I needed something else, but I realized now it wasn't real. He's not you. I see that now. You were always good to me. Too good, maybe. Please, let's talk. Let me fix this. I read it twice, then deleted it. No reply. No satisfaction. Just progress. She wanted forgiveness without confession. She wanted comfort without consequence. But I wasn't her backup plan anymore. I was the storm she didn't see coming. And while she scrambled to patch a ship already sinking, I was tightening the noose. Quietly, methodically, because you don't scream during a symphony. You let the final note play itself into silence. And Madison? She was already off key. I didn't hear from her for 5 days. Then, out of nowhere, I got a letter. An actual handwritten letter. Not an email, not a text from another burner phone. A letter in an envelope, slid under my apartment door like some kind of sad teenage movie. It was addressed just to Daniel, no last name, no return address. But the handwriting? I knew it too well. I'd seen it 1,000 times on sticky notes stuck to the fridge, to-do lists half crossed out, birthday cards she always made too long. Loopy, confident, like she never expected to be questioned. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it for 20 minutes, then tossed it on the counter next to my coffee. Let it sit there like a live wire. I didn't want to give her the power of timing. Not after everything she took. But by midnight, I couldn't resist. I opened it. Inside were 2 pages. 2 full pages of the most beautifully worded, emotionally manipulative, weaponized remorse I had ever read in my life. Daniel, I didn't know how bad I'd hurt you until I saw your eyes that day in the hallway. You didn't open the door, but I felt it. I felt you on the other side. I deserve the silence. I do. But I also need you to know something. I never meant to fall in love with someone else. I didn't plan it. It just happened. And for a while, I believed in it. But now, I don't even recognize who I became. She went on. Told me about how the apartment with him was small, cold, how he spent most nights working late, and how she found an Uber receipt on his phone from a club she'd never been to. How she asked him about it, and he told her not to be dramatic. Oh, how quickly the tide turns. She wrote that she missed me, my steadiness, my predictability, my silence. Funny, those were the same things she used to call boring when we fought. I didn't think I'd be the kind of woman who destroys her own life. But I did. And now I see it. I lost everything that mattered. I know it's too late. But if there's even a sliver of you that still sees the woman you fell in love with, please, let me say it to your face. Please. There was no signature. No love, Madison. No hearts. No lipstick mark. Just pain, bottled and served cold. I folded the letter once, placed it in the drawer under my knives, and locked it. Then I called James. James was a friend from way back, a guy who owed me more favors than I could count. He also happened to be a private investigator. Quiet, clean, and fast. I gave him one instruction. I want everything on him. Quietly. No alerts. Nothing that traces back to me. He said he'd call me in 3 days. While I waited, I made moves. I switched banks. Froze every account still tied to her name. I sent formal notice of intent to dissolve all remaining financial ties. I had my lawyer deliver the official property claim to her inbox, subject line, notification of transfer final. It was done. The house was gone. The sale finalized. The funds routed through a shell trust. By the time she read the document, the money would already be on a 30-day lock in an account she couldn't touch. Let her read it with shaking hands. Let her understand that while she was writing tear-soaked letters, I was burning the last bridge behind me. And then came James's call. You're going to want to hear this in person. That's how you know it's bad. He slid the file across the diner table like a mobster in a movie. Inside, photos, text logs, surveillance shots. He hadn't just followed him. He'd followed them both. Turns out Smoothie Boy, real name Cole Braxton, wasn't new to this game. He had a history of playing savior to other men's wives. 3 past restraining orders from women who claimed he love-bombed them, pushed them to abandon their lives, then isolated them once they did. Same pattern. Same script. Madison was just the latest casting choice. The most recent ex-wife? She filed for divorce after Cole drained her accounts, took her car, and ghosted with a woman 10 years younger. 2 months after he moved in with Madison, he was still seeing her. That's what the surveillance caught. Him leaving her apartment at 3 a.m., Madison none the wiser, asleep in the dark like the fool she made me out to be. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt still, because everything I'd suspected, the manipulation, the betrayal, the brutal irony was laid out in full color now. Madison had traded stability for illusion. She thought she was sprinting toward freedom, but all she'd done was chain herself to a professional predator. And now? Now she was alone with him, and she knew it. She called me that night, not from a burner, not through a sobbing voicemail or a pleading letter. She called me from her real number, the number I'd blocked weeks ago, meaning she went through the trouble of creating a new line, begging me through every side channel she could find, and when none of that worked, she went back to square one. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. Silence. Not even breathing. Then, finally, her voice. Small. Croaky. Nothing like the woman who used to command rooms with a glance. Thank you for answering. I didn't say anything. Her voice cracked. I needed you to hear it from me. Not through lawyers. Not through files. Just from me. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling of my new apartment. There was a leak stain forming in the corner above the fridge. I made a mental note to call maintenance. I didn't care what Madison needed, but I was curious. So I let her talk. And God, did she talk. She told me everything. Or rather, what she thought was everything. She said Cole changed. That he was different now. Cold. Controlling. Jealous. That he started checking her texts, snapping at her when she went out, accusing her of still wanting me. I almost laughed at that one. She said she felt like a hostage in her own life. That she'd tried to leave once, but he threatened to cancel her lease, which, surprise, he'd put under his name only. She said she couldn't access her own checking account because he'd convinced her to close ours and open a fresh start account, then kept the password for himself. She said she missed her friends, her family, her stupid plants. And yes, she said she missed me. But the part that really got me? I keep thinking about our last Thanksgiving together. When you fell asleep on the couch watching the parade, and I put that ugly scarf over you like a blanket. I remember thinking, I don't love him the way I used to. But now I'd do anything to go back to that moment and just stay there. I should have hung up. I should have slammed that phone down and let the silence finish what she started. But instead, I said one sentence. Just one. You left me with a text. That was it. That was the weight of everything. The betrayal. The disregard. The insult of 11 years wiped out in a single digital message like she was canceling a gym membership. And you know what she said? I know. Then she cried. Not loud. Not performative. Just these quiet, gasping little breaths like the weight of her choices had finally crushed her chest. I ended the call without another word, but I didn't feel better. Not yet, because she still didn't understand what she'd done. She still thought this was about us, about hearts and healing, about maybe in another life. She didn't understand that I had burned that bridge, buried the ashes, and built a goddamn fortress on top of the crater. She thought I was standing at the door, deciding whether to let her in. What she didn't know, the house had already been torn down, and the land was for sale. The next day, I sent one final package to her new address. A large padded envelope. Inside, a copy of the house transfer documents showing the finalized sale. A photo of her and Cole, one of the surveillance shots from outside the apartment. A printed copy of the bank statement showing her name removed from every account. And finally, a post-it note in my handwriting. I'm not your safety net. I'm the fall. No return address. No signature. Just closure, the way she gave it to me, brutal, fast, and unnegotiable. That night, my phone stayed silent. She didn't call again. Not the next day. Not the day after. But I knew what was coming. She wasn't done breaking. She was just starting. And I was done being her cushion. Let her hit the ground. Let her find out how hard it really was. Because from here on out, I wasn't going to catch her. I was going to watch. From higher ground. It happened sooner than I thought. 3 days after I sent the package, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. Georgia area code. I almost ignored it until the voicemail came through. Hi, this is Officer Travis with the Decatur PD. I'm calling regarding a situation involving a Miss Madison Clark and a Mr. Cole Braxton. We'd appreciate a callback at your earliest convenience. I played the message twice. Once to let the words hit. Second time to make sure I heard what I hoped I heard. Then I called back. Calmly, curiously. The officer confirmed my name, then asked if I had any recent contact with Madison. I told him truthfully that we'd spoken briefly by phone earlier that week. No threats. No raised voices. Then I asked what this was about. He didn't go into too much detail, just that there had been a domestic disturbance called in by a neighbor, that Cole had been detained for questioning, and that Madison had filed for a temporary restraining order that morning. And there it was. The final fracture. The cracks that had been spiderwebbing beneath her fantasy life? They were finally giving way. She'd chosen a man who looked good in a mirror and poisonous in a home. A man who fed her compliments like candy until she was numb, then ripped the floor out from beneath her the second she leaned in too far. And now? She was alone. Properly. Terrifyingly. Alone. No house. No savings. No friends, at least not the ones who stuck around after her little performance. And now, know him. She called that evening. Again. This time from a shelter. I answered. She didn't waste time. I'm sorry. I know that means nothing now. But I am. For everything. I let her speak. For 13 minutes, she told me everything I already knew, but this time with the tone of someone who finally got it. The rose-colored glasses were gone. The self-righteous pride had collapsed. She talked about the manipulation, how Cole would track her movements, guilt her into deleting contacts, plan ideas in her head until she couldn't tell if her thoughts were hers or his. And then she started crying again. But it was different now. Not performative. Not strategic. Just broken. He told me I could never go back to you because you'd already replaced me. That I was just another tired, aging girl to you now. And the worst part is, I believed him. I believed I was disposable. That's when I spoke. Not with cruelty. Not with sympathy either. Just truth. You believed him because you needed someone to blame for what you did. And the easiest person to blame was the one you betrayed. She didn't argue. Didn't sniffle. Just whispered, I know. She asked me if I hated her. I told her no. Hating her would mean I still gave her that much space in my life. But I didn't. Not anymore. Then she asked me the one question I didn't expect. The one I wasn't ready for. Would you ever forgive me? Silence stretched for miles. I looked around my quiet, peaceful apartment. The books on the shelf. My dog sleeping by the window. The life I had now clean, still mine. I thought about forgiveness. How it's not a switch. Not a single moment. It's a process. One that begins when the bleeding stops and the scars stop aching every time someone says their name. Then I said the truth. I don't know. And I don't owe you that answer. She let out a shaky breath, like she'd been bracing herself to be punched and instead got a mirror. I wished her safety. Nothing more. Then I hung up. That night, I slept deeper than I had in years. Because I finally understood something. Justice doesn't always wear a courtroom robe. Sometimes, it looks like a woman sitting alone in a shelter, staring at the broken pieces of a kingdom she destroyed with her own hands. And knowing, not suspecting, not fearing, but knowing that she will never get it back. Not from him. Not from me. Not from anyone. It was raining the night she came to the building again. Hard. The kind of rain that washes away everything thin and superficial makeup, charm, excuses. The streets were slick, glowing under street lamps, and when I spotted her through the peephole, she looked like a ghost of the woman I once knew. No umbrella. No jacket. Just standing there, soaked to the bone. She wasn't knocking this time. She wasn't calling my name or texting or making a scene. She just stood there, silent, drenched, and I let her. Not out of cruelty, no. I didn't need revenge to feel good. I'd already taken it in silence, piece by piece. My revenge was in her knowing she had nothing left to hold on to. The door stayed closed. She eventually turned and left, just like the last time, but slower. This time, there wasn't hope in her steps. There wasn't fire. There was finality. I watched from my window as she crossed the street, each step echoing through the water. She paused once beneath a streetlight, took out her phone, looked at it, and then did something that surprised me. She threw it, hard, right into a storm drain. And then she walked off into the dark. No call. No message. That was the moment I knew. She had nothing left. The next morning, I got an email from my attorney. Simple. Straightforward. She signed. The divorce was final. Clean. No contest. No plea. No stalling tactics. She hadn't even asked for anything, not the money, not the property, not even the furniture she once claimed held her memories. She walked away with nothing. And that was how I knew the punishment had landed. Not because I took everything from her, but because she finally realized what she'd thrown away. And for the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about her when I made coffee. I didn't instinctively check my phone for a message that wasn't coming. I didn't feel that tightness in my chest when the silence got too deep. Instead, I sat down in my kitchen, alone, and it was peaceful, not hollow, not heavy, just quiet. I opened my laptop and stared at the folder labeled Collapse, the one I'd spent weeks building: photos, emails, receipts, texts, the mountain of evidence I once thought I'd need to bring her down in court. And slowly, I dragged the folder to the trash, then clicked delete, because I didn't need it anymore. Her world had already crumbled, and it wasn't because I tore it down. She did. All I did was move out of the way. That afternoon, I passed by a small bookstore on the corner. The kind Madison used to roll her eyes at. I went inside, lost an hour just browsing titles I'd never had the time to read. It felt like I was meeting myself again for the first time in years. Not the man she molded. Not the husband who swallowed every insult to keep the peace. Just me. And when I walked out, book in hand, the air felt lighter. The rain had stopped. The sun was peeking out over the buildings like the city was trying to remember how to breathe again. Just like I was. Madison? She became a story. A lesson. A scar that no longer burned. She got everything she chased: freedom, passion, chaos. And it devoured her. Me? I got silence. Stability. A second chance. And I wasn't going to waste it. I got the call 2 weeks later. From an old mutual friend. The kind that vanished during the chaos and now didn't know which side of the wreckage to stand on. He sounded hesitant. Nervous, even. Hey man, I wasn't sure if I should say anything, but you need to know. Madison's in the hospital. I didn't respond right away. He kept going. It's not life-threatening. Just bad. Apparently, she fainted at work. Malnourished. Stress. Said she hadn't eaten in days. Had a breakdown in the lobby. I could hear the quiet apologies sitting behind every word. Like he knew what she did. Like he thought I might still care. And here's the thing. I didn't. Not the way I used to. I didn't feel panic. I didn't feel sorrow. Just a dull pulse of something that resembled closure. Confirmation. That the path she sprinted down with so much confidence had led exactly where I knew it would. She didn't just fall. She collapsed. I thanked him. Said I'd think about reaching out. Then hung up. I didn't call the hospital. I didn't send flowers. Instead, I opened my notebook, the one I'd been keeping in secret since the day she left. At the top of the first page, I had written, "When she breaks, you do not go back. No matter how loud she cries, no matter how convincing the story, you do not go back." I reread that sentence 10 times, then turn the page. On the next one, I wrote something new. Sometimes, love is letting go. Other times, it's locking the door and walking away while they scream on the other side. Later that night, I took a walk through our old neighborhood, past the coffee shop she loved, now shuttered, past the corner where she first told me she wanted to have kids, only to steal that dream from me behind my back, and then past our house. The lights were off. A "for rent" sign stood crooked in the lawn. New grass. No ghosts. Just a building. Like we never lived there. And that's when it hit me. Really hit me. I wasn't healing. I was done. There was no wound anymore. Just a scar that didn't sting. Madison had finally found the silence she once mocked. The stillness she thought made me boring. She was surrounded by it now. But this time, it wasn't peace. It was isolation. You see, what she never understood is that people like me, quiet, loyal, boring men, we don't break loudly. We endure. And while she chased spark after spark, she forgot that fires burn out. But stone stays. And when it's cut deep enough, it doesn't cry. It carves. I went home that night and deleted her last voicemail. Her voice, soft, begging, erased in a second. She had her chance. She set the rules. And now she was living by them. Alone. Empty. Echoing in a life she built on lies. I turned out the light. Sat in the dark. And for the first time in months, I smiled. Not because she suffered. Not because I won. But because I was finally free. From the weight. From the doubt. From her. She showed up one final time. Unannounced. No call. No message. Just her, standing in the lobby of my building like a shadow someone forgot to erase. The doorman buzzed me. Mr. Grayson? There's a woman here asking for you. Says it's urgent." I asked what she looked like. He said, "Wet hair. Skinny. Looks tired. Like she ain't slept in a while." Yeah, that'd be her. I told him to keep the door locked. And I watched from above as she waited. 20 minutes. Maybe more. She paced. Saturday. Stood. Checked her watch. Rubbed her arms. Looked up at my window like she could feel me watching. Maybe she could. We used to have that kind of connection before she drilled holes in it and let the water pour in. Eventually, she reached into her purse and pulled something out. A letter. She handed it to the doorman, said, "Make sure he gets this, please." That's all. Then she left. No tantrum. No fake tears. No drama. Just gone. I didn't open it right away. I left it on the counter while I made dinner. Chicken and rice. Simple. The kind of meal she used to call lazy. Now it tasted like peace. After I ate, I sat down and finally opened the envelope. It was short. No 2-page apology. No carefully crafted speech. Just her handwriting. Smaller now. Meeker. "Daniel, you were right. About everything. About him. About me. I don't deserve forgiveness. I won't ask for it again. But I needed to say this anyway. I loved you. I did. And I think a part of me still does. But I was too stupid and too selfish to understand what that love meant. You gave me stability, and I mistook it for weakness. You gave me trust, and I treated it like a blank check. You gave me a future, and I sold it for attention. I destroyed the only good thing in my life. And I know I don't get to rebuild it. I know that now. Wherever you are. I hope you're happy. Truly. M." I folded the letter, set it down, and didn't cry, didn't sigh, didn't feel anything. Because when the wound is finally healed, even the scalpel that made it looks harmless. And she was nothing more than a chapter now, a story I could close without flinching. That night, I burned the letter, watched the flames eat every word, watched the paper curl, blacken, vanish. And when the last edge turned to ash, I leaned back in my chair and stared at the wall. My home, mine, was quiet, warm. I had plans tomorrow. Work. A book I was reading. A weekend hike coming up. The kind of life I never could have had while dragging the weight of someone else's chaos behind me. She thought I'd always be there. That no matter what she did, I'd still be waiting at the bottom with open arms. But what she didn't realize, I wasn't the bottom. I was the ground. And once she stepped off me, she had nowhere left to land.